Chapter 51. Red Zone, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Cool. The stage which held the second tutorial. And the giant tower that was located above at the island at the top. A large amount of water was rising up to the tower. To be specific, all the islands were falling beneath the sea at a very fast rate. It had already been a while since the water came up to the first floor of the tower, and the slowly rising water seemed like it would go over the third floor soon. Cheesic. The blazing third floor started to get flooded by the poisonous sea as all the flames started to get extinguished. A situation where it won't be long until the whole tower would be submerged beneath the sea. And a small door that was located at the top of this tower opened as somebody came out. A man in a mess who was covered in blood. God damn it. For that thing to come out at the very end. It took way too long. Hansu grinded his teeth. There weren't any artifacts that weren't damaged either. A few seemed to be in good condition, but they all turned into dust that scattered as if they had a problem with them. It seems I must renew them all. These artifacts couldn't be used in the red zone, where he will be soon, anyways. And it wasn't really a waste if what he had gained was taken into account. Hansu, who threw out every artifact on his body other than the Nirmaha's ring, estimated the time and then clicked his tongue. There's 2 hours left now. 90th day. 2 hours before the tutorial ends. After seeing the way the water was rising, everything would be submerged after 2 hours. Most people would have already set off. Hansu jumped off as he looked below the tower and dug his hand onto the wall of the tower. Quadudaduck. The red, and not colorless, runes started to twist the laws of Hansu's body in his hands, which had been strengthened by this, started to smash the walls. And Hansu kept that speed, from the rebound force of his action, constant as he rode down the tower. Hoong. Go through from the 4th floor. The entrance which Ralph Lauren had come out from. And the tower's topmost floor. It'll be a bit tight. To make the ship. You needed the ship prepared by the ferry in order to go from the colorless zone to the red zone. Since this place would completely sink. Hansu ran towards the 4th floor as fast as he could. God damn it. Those bitches from the Clan Alliance. For them to really leave us and go. Gumchan and the 7 others grinded their teeth as they searched around the insides of the jungle. Those crazy bastards. They leave even when they had room to spare. There wasn't much resentment about the ship made by the Free Alliance, which had set off 4 days ago, since they were the ones who chose not to get on, but they didn't know that the guys of the Clan Alliance would act like this. And because of that they were searching around the jungle like this. Hurry. We need to find the Curon parasite and get it over there. Curon parasite. They had gathered all of the other materials for the ship in the 2 days after the departure of the Clan Alliance, but they didn't acquire the Curon parasite yet. And the ferry would only make the ship for them if they give the Curon parasite to it. But one of the people running spoke while making an anxious expression. Hey! But the Curon parasite is... Then Gumchan shouted as he grinded his teeth. Damn it. Then what? We can't make the ship without that. Curon parasite. There wasn't much about it. It was so weak that it would die if you tapped it around a bit. The problem was where they parasite on. A 30 big giant crocodile that lived in the swamps of the inner parts of the wide 4th floor. It had kindly been written in the catalogue for making the ship by the ferry that it lived in the inside of the Galapagos crocodile's mouth. Since there were basic explanations about the ship and the places to gather the material for it. They had promised themselves that they would never come back here after seeing an adventurer, who was trying to get the material, get his leg torn off, but for them to come back here like this. Damn it. There's nothing we can do. Gumchan grinded his teeth. They had to make the ship. A few people, who had gotten anxious after the Clan Alliance left, cut off a few trees in the jungle and tried to get to the by making a raft and getting onto the sea. The result was misery in itself. They had all died after getting infected from the waves of poison. You could stay afloat for a while, but if you sink then your whole body will melt. The fairy giggled at that as if it was extremely funny and spoke. And everyone who had seen this started searching all around the fourth floor. Since they might really melt down if they aren't able to get the materials in time. This was already 2 days ago. And now there were probably less than 2 hours left. The Free Alliance and the Clan Alliance each made a giant ship that would still have space left after holding 2,000 people. They had become like this because they saw each of the 500 Free Alliance and the 600 Clan Alliance make a ship to carry 2,000 and had thought that they would take them and had leisurely hunted. If they had faithfully prepared the ship for a month then they wouldn't have fallen into such a dangerous situation. Damn it. We should have gotten the materials despite the dangers. Or we should have followed the Free Alliance. After a bit of running, he could see the shady swamp in the distance. Why did they make such a large ship if they weren't gonna take us with them? He had run in a hurry but then he felt anxious again. If the monsters they needed to kill in order to get the materials were easy then they would have done so already. But as if it wasn't only him who had thought this, the footsteps of 6 others behind him were slowing down as well. And at that moment a voice was heard above them. You aren't going to kill it. Then I shall do it. Ugh. When they looked up after getting shocked they could see a man running between the branches of the jungle. And there was a very unique thing about him. He has nothing on his body. To have nothing on his body. Unlike the 3rd floor of the tutorial where everyone had been separated, the 4th floor was a large area where all the survivors could stay together. Of course it was a huge area but they had seen a lot of different kinds of people due to the fact that the areas weren't isolated. And a few people out of the 2,000 survivors caught the eye. Like Park Kyungmi's Special Force clan that was famous for being a small group of elites despite her being a lord. The incredibly strong guy with a strange mask. But it was the first time he had someone run about without anything on their body. No. He has a single ring on. They didn't have any solutions but this guy was something else. No, he didn't even know how to deal with this because such a unique guy had suddenly popped out. Well yeah. Since there's more than one of them. Even before they could do anything, the guy who had finished talking ran into the swamp. They gazed blankly for a moment and then asked Gum-chan. What are you going to do? Gum-chan pondered for a moment and then opened his mouth. It seems like he's going to fight, we should go and see the situation as we. Boom. Before he could finish his words, a dark golden light penetrated through the swamp along with a giant noise. Kawakak. And then a very loud scream that vibrated throughout the swamp exploded out. Galapagos crocodile's scream. When the surprised group ran over, they saw an unbelievable sight. The giant crocodile had its skull crushed and the man was pulling out the Curon parasite from the insides of its mouth which he had split apart. The fuck? What did he crush it with? Skill. The thickness of his skull that they could see between the broken bones were over 50 centimeters thick and it seemed like it wasn't normal bones from the shininess. But it had been broken apart like tofu. The 4th floor was indeed very large but it wasn't so wide to the point where a rumor wouldn't get spread around. If he was that strong then they should have at least heard about him at least once but they had never heard about him. Is that him? He doesn't have the chain scythe and dagger. And as they heard, that guy did not use any skills ever. There was probably a reason why he couldn't use it. But that shining light was definitely the effect of a skill. Damn it. I don't know who he is. Did he gain something through a fortuitous encounter or something? While Gum-chan was shocked, one of the people with Gum-chan shouted out even before he could stop him, hey. Wait a moment. When the guy turned around one of the people behind Gum-chan shouted loudly. It seems like you don't have a ship either, how about going with us? We have everything but that parasite. Though they wanted to get a free ride only a single Curon parasite lived within each crocodile. And he didn't know what that guy did, but for him to have the strength to crush that giant crocodile with a single strike meant that opposing him in terms of strength was impossible. The Galapagos crocodile itself was burdensome. It didn't make any sense to go up against such a person who killed it with a single strike. But there was no need to actually fight. The ship they could make with the materials they had and the Curon parasite could easily hold 10 people. It was enough for them 7 and that one man to get on. Oh. While Gumchan made a satisfied expression, a few people came through the swamp while gasping for air. What? You gained the Curon parasite, BL.net. They were all gasping for air and had lights shining in their eyes. They could only be anxious since they didn't make the ship while the toxic water was rising by the minute. They had gained all the easy materials in the 2 days after the clan alliance had left, but there were more people who had been wandering around the swamp due to the fear of it than they had thought. They had all gathered here as they heard the scream of the Galapagos crocodile dying. The man standing in the front shouted loudly at Hansu. Hey! Did you kill it for those guys? Then help us kill it too. And then Gumchan shouted in confusion. What are you talking about? We didn't tell him to kill it but rather gave a proposal. Do you think we're trying to get a free ride? We're willing to give him all the other materials. Then the man standing in the very front smiled. Then that's even better. Does it really need to be you guys? What? The man ignored Gumchan and then shouted at Hansu. We have all the other materials as well. But our ship is a 20-man ship. We just couldn't get the ship because we didn't have the parasite that the Galapagos crocodile was guarding over. Isn't it better for you guys to go to a bigger ship? The man spoke with confidence. As he saw it, the amateurs over there had only 7 people. The ship they were preparing were probably a 10-man. On the other hand, they had 13 people and had a bit more leisure, so the ship they had prepared was a 20-man ship of a slightly larger size. Wouldn't they be better? Gumchan grinded his teeth at those words. It was just as he said. They looked at the ships that were crossing the dangerous-looking sea on the direction that the ferry had pointed to. It wasn't an issue of people on board. It was just that they would be safer the more materials they invested in order to get a bigger ship from the ferry to travel much more safely. The fact that a lot of people could get on was just a side effect. But it wasn't only Gumchan who had become desperate at those words. There really wasn't much time left anymore. You bastard. If you do that, then we have the materials as well. Let's go with us. With us. Damn it. Then at least get one for us each. We're all going to die. Hansu watched the chaos around him as he shook his head and spoke. I don't need those materials. What? I'll be making a 500-man ship. You guys use that by yourselves. Isn't this guy just a maniac? Making a 500-man ship for himself. Johann, who had been making the 20-man ship, was speechless. Proofreader's note in previous chapter was changed to. This is regular chapter 2 of 3. Next chapter comes on Sunday, giving Ecchi a 1-day rest. Please don't donate today, because Ecchi might really break otherwise. Chapter 52. Red Zone 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. This bitch. Is he saying that he's going to gain all those materials in the remaining time? Johann was speechless. It wasn't that you needed a large amount of materials for a big ship. Since though it was called materials, you didn't make the ship with those materials. Actually, the materials felt more like currency for buying the ship. Ednel.co, but of course it wasn't easy just because it was like that. The more expensive the ship was, a core for which the difficulty of gaining rose exponentially was added into it. The Curon parasite was the core ingredient for the ships with a capacity of 30 people or less. The ships which could hold over 30 people needed the red-spotted salamander's heart, and the 2,000-man-sized ships which the large clans rode on needed the skull of the volcanic bear, which there were only 2 of on all of the 4th floor. The core item needed for the 500-man ship was Nokrakrok Lizard's heart. The two clans which weren't part of an alliance and had made this ship received quite a large amount of casualties while hunting this guy. While Johann was thinking random things, Hansu shouted as he flew off. "Don't worry. I'll let you guys ride on it." "What?" Hansu smirked at the reply, which seemed like that they had misheard. Why would he let all 100 of them die after making the ship? These guys couldn't make the ship during the remaining time. If you want to get on, then go chop down some Arun trees and get some Kelk's mucus sac. That's the fee for the ride. I'll see you at the entrance. Hey! Hey! Hey, wait over there! Johann shouted out in a panic, but Hansu had already disappeared into the distance. Everyone looked at each other as if they were guarding against each other, but then started to speak out one at a time. There were two choices. To either gain the ride fee like that guy had said, or to make the ship and leave like that. What do we do? Shall we group up and fight? We need at least 5 20-man ships in order to have enough capacity for 100 people. We need at least 10 Curon parasites. We can't kill 10 of them in 2 hours. Damn it. The fact that they had been gathered like had actually become the problem. They could easily catch 3 or 4 since 100 people were gathered like this. But they couldn't make ships for all 100 people to get on with that. There will be a bloody battle. God damn it. Johann frowned. Could that guy really gain all the materials to make the 500-man ship? Because then there was nothing much more to do. Since they will be thankful to him too. But if he said that to make us calm down, he may just make a 10-man ship and leave like that. Then we won't simply die. If that happened, then they will at least break his ship apart. But why is he telling us to bring these? Kelk mucus sac and Arun tree weren't part of the necessary materials. And the amount he had requested was quite a lot. If you take into account of the hardness of the Arun tree, then all 100 people still needed to work hard after splitting up. First I'll move. Since it was rather cheap fee for a ride. Please. Let us thank you. Getting abandoned once was enough. And soon everyone dispersed into numerous directions. Coo, Nokrakrok lizard. Hansu flew around and then whipped at the lizard's chin after making a tight twist. Boom! The dark golden light that had run up Hansu's arm gathered in his hands and then exploded. The lizard got hit in the head, tumbled for a while and then died. Hansu started to search around the corpse of the lizard. Let's see. I should take the part where the great arteries of the 3 hearts combine, right? 3 hearts. Which was why they didn't count. The part where the arteries of the 3 hearts combined, which there was only one of, counted. Hansu took out the essence of the material and then moved his position to the where he had came in from the outside. There were people gathering there with the Arun trees and Kelk mucus sac along with anxious expressions. Let's go. Everyone's facial tone changed but made a slightly suspicious expression too. They could only be sensitive since their lives were on the line. And they couldn't believe the fact that he had gained the materials for a 500-man ship in such a short time. Did you really get them? Hansu nodded as Johann, who had been standing in the front, asked with a slightly suspicious expression. Hurry and get over here. There's less than 30 minutes left now. Hansu then walked towards the toxic waters that had filled up to the lower areas of the 4th floor and started to stack all the materials he had gained. How do things keep coming out from that small pouch? He killed all them within the 2 hours. The people made expressions of fear. Numerous parts of different beasts' corpses were coming out endlessly. You. While the people made scared expressions while watching the toxic waters which seemed like they could rise up at any moment, the fairy appeared in front of their eyes. Wow! Congratulations! You gathered all the materials. First I will congratulate. Please hurry with the ship first. Somebody shouted loudly. They had realized that they wouldn't die even if they talked like that to the fairy. And the situation where the toxic waters may reach their feet at any time had made them even more anxious. There were 30 minutes left, but this was the time left for the whole fourth floor to get submerged. If they were even 5 minutes late, then the place they were standing at may all be submerged. The fairy smiled as it spoke. Oh my. Sorry. You're probably anxious. The ship you guys will ride on this. As soon as the fairy's words ended, all the materials melted and disappeared. And toxic waters starting boiling as a giant bubble appeared. Right before the bubble seemed like it would blow up, the sea split as a giant ship appeared. A ship the size of a cruise ship. While everyone was marveling at the high-class looking ship, Johann spat coldly at the fairy. You will control that. There isn't anyone here who knows how to control a ship. It was hard enough to control a modern yacht alone, how hard would it be to control that giant ship? Since the only ship control they knew was a pirate captain shouting while spinning the steering wheel of a strange looking ship. *PR note. One Piece reference. The fairy just smiled at those words. Don't worry. We will sail the ship for you guys as a service the first time, so rest comfortably. Hee. The estimated date of arrival is 3 days. If you leave it alone it will go to the red zone, but if you want to change the direction then the controls are in the middle of the deck. The controls aren't hard. Everybody sighed in relief. They were able to barely escape 30 minutes before they were about to get submerged along with the whole island. But Johann frowned slightly. The first sail is free as service. And for them to allow them to turn direction. Doesn't that mean that there are going to be instances where they might have to change the direction of the ship? While Johann was making a rather dirty expression, Hansu's voice was heard from above. What are you doing? Get on. Bring the kelp mucus sacks and the wood. Chiik, walk. It got all the way up here. Hurry and get on. Hurry. It wasn't that they were going to melt down right away, but they will melt down if they were to be submerged. As the toxic water started to melt the soles of their shoes, everyone flew their body up to the ship along with the mucus sacks and the wood in a hurry. Even if they were weak, they were people with superhuman physiques in the normal world. Getting onto a ship of this height was merely a joke. And when all the people got onto the ship, the sails of the ship flapped back and forth as it started to move magically. The giant ship then started to lead them towards the next area, Let's all introduce ourselves. I'm called Johann. Thank you for letting me on. Everyone gathered on the deck of the ship and started to introduce themselves. Since no matter how much they liked or hated each other, they were on the same ship and be with each other for 3 days, or more. And when it became Hansu's turn, everyone started focusing on him. Since he was the person who got caught in the eye the most. He didn't have anything on. He didn't have any equipment on him. But he was strong. Hansu spoke as he looked at them. I am called Kong Hansu. Everyone nodded their heads. And a few of the expressions brightened up. If a strong guy was a crazy guy, then it would be extremely dangerous. They had gotten on the ship due to their anxious minds, but if a guy this strong were to go crazy on a ship where they could not run away, then it would become very troublesome. But from the way he was acting, he was one of the few people who were still sane. Johann nodded his head slightly on the inside. So it was this guy. This guy was extremely famous. Since he had stood out since Central Island. But there was a question. There hasn't been anybody who has seen this guy in the tower. Even if they went to different islands, they were bound to meet on the 4th floor. Since that was how it was structured. But there wasn't anybody who had seen this guy prior to the 2 hours before the departure. And because of this they had thought he died, but for him to be alive. Well. There is no need to make trouble. There was no need to create trouble when they were going to be together for 3 days. As everyone's introductions ended, everyone looked around the ship with comfortable expressions and spoke out. Anyways. Are we going to rest like this for 3 days? Everyone made blissful expressions. The 3 months of the tutorial was constant tensions and fighting. They could only feel comfortable since they were allowed to rest for 3 days in a rather luxurious ship. And as they went below the deck, they could see some delicious things as if they were services. But Hansu shook his head. The fairy had told them that they don't really lay their hands on them once the tutorial ends. But that was basically because there was no need to anymore. TSK. I wanted to make a 2,000-man ship originally. He wanted to make the biggest ship, and probably could have made it with leisure, but his plans had been screwed because the difficulty of the third gate was higher than he had thought. 2 hours was far from enough time even for someone like him. Though the 500-man ship isn't bad. It wasn't that the amount of people the ship could carry was important, but rather the defenses and durability of the ship increased as the size got bigger. And because of this the people here had to do well. They need to pay for their own food. Hansu mumbled as he looked towards the distant sea. It's enough to make a 30-man ship, right? There's no reason to make a giant ship, right? One of the people who had been on the ship that was sailing towards the red zone shouted out loudly. Everyone then chuckled as they nodded. Their ship was basically a raft compared to the giant ship the alliances had sailed off on, but if you take into account that the few hundred of them had run around for a whole month, this ship was much better in terms of efficiency. As I thought. This is better than struggling to make a 100-man or 200-man ship. They didn't really feel like they had spare room since 30 people were riding on a 30-man ship, but this discomfort just needed to be held in when they were going to arrive in 3 days. Though the Free Alliance guys asked us to go with them. Those guys were very annoying because they had a lot of things they set limits on. And joining a clan was a bit unsettling due to the fact that his feelings would get changed by itself. This was better even if they suffer a little bit. Let's rest a bit for 3 days. Since we struggled hard until now. Everyone nodded their heads at these words. How much had they suffered in order to create this? They struggled a lot by going into dangerous hunting grounds and hunting by themselves. But this was still a smart decision. They laughed inwardly at the people who were still at the tower or have submerged under the waters. How would they trust the Alliance guys and wait for them? Their lives were on the line. Those guys had laughed at them when they were making the ship, but the ones who had survived in the end were them. It sounds like the story of the ant and the cicada. *PR note. A Jean de La Fontaine fable, and now they had to rest well with this as the reward. Since the life on the place they will arrive at won't be comfortable. Mountain range of the world tree. The name's really good though. While they were thinking of the name of the red zone that the fairy had told them, a fearsome sound came from the floor. Cusack. Chew. Chew. Kududuk. Everyone made anxious expressions at the strange sounds as they rose up. Where's this coming from? It's below the ship. I'll go check. One person went below very carefully. And then came back up while screaming. Fuck. Some bastard is making holes on the bottom of the ship. What? Everybody freaked out as they bounced out of their seats. How could swimming across 3 days' worth of travel on a ship on this toxic waters be possible? And they had clearly seen the people who tried to cross on rafts. If this ship sinks then it'll be a massacre. Everyone madly ran down. And then freaked out at the 3-pronged spears coming up from below the ship. Everyone run towards it while swinging their swords crazily at the sight of the toxic waters pouring in. Fuck, block it. These bastards won't come inside. This bitches just keep jabbing from the outside. Goddamn. Somebody go into the sea and get them off while we block them from here. Everyone flinched at those words. Jump into the toxic waters. They could fight to some degree. Since their bodies didn't melt right away even if they were toxic waters. But the probability of death rose by tens of times. Fuck. We should have made a bigger ship. Then the holes wouldn't have been made this easily and they could have used long-range skills to kill them off during that time. Damn it. Ack. Everyone made expressions of despair as they looked at the slowly sinking ship. Almost 10,000 tutorial areas. All the ships that started from different tutorial areas, that numbered up to a few tens of thousands if they were all combined, had the same thing occurring to them at the same time. Proofreader's note: I don't get how Hansu would have made the 2,000-man ship, given that the two volcanic bears were already killed by the Free Alliance and the Clan Alliance, but he probably had a solution. Last regular chapter of the week. A big thank you to the sponsors for encouraging Ecchi to translate more. Evil laugh. Chapter 53. Red Zone 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Johann made a satisfied expression at the distant sea from the deck of the ship. It's nice. 100 people who consisted of 8 groups. They went into deciding where they would stay on the ship for the next 3 days naturally. A slight war of nerves had occurred since the good spots were limited even in the same ship. But even if they were a mere 100 people there were still differences. Him and his comrades were among the strongest of the 100 and because of this they gained the privilege to stay in the most comfortable part in the ship. This is it. Very nice. Johann, who had regained the superiority which he couldn't have while the Clan Alliance guys were around, smiled in good spirits. Though there was something that remained stuck on his mind. I just can't figure out what he is thinking. Johann looked at Hansu, who was standing in the middle of the deck while looking at the distant sea. This was a result that sprouted from Hansu not acting out despite being the strongest person out of the 100. He had let them on board but didn't really care about them. He's the problem. Johann pondered while looking at Hansu and then nodded his head. As I thought. There is a need to create a relation with that guy. Though he didn't really know how long they'll be together. If you say that they were going to be together for a while then there was nothing bad about having a good relation with that guy. No, it was actually extremely good. Since as long as he could show others that he was close to him, others will fall under them. Though their current influence was a bit on the bigger side, it was not that bigger than those of others, nor was it perfect. 2 things were needed in order for them to solidify their influence. They needed to slowly pull in the other groups and create a rather good relationship with Hansu at the same time. Well, the 2 things aren't much different anyway. Once he unites everyone from the other party, then Hansu won't be able to ignore him anymore and vice versa. If he were to get close to Hansu then everyone else will listen to his words more closely. It seems like he's young too. There isn't a human in the world who doesn't like to be well treated. For that he needed to converse with him. Since he needed to find out about Hansu's tastes. It'll be nice if he likes something like women or something. Right as Johann got up from the deck and tried to walk towards where Hansu was, a noise was heard from behind. Ave me. Ha! Johann frowned as he looked at the person shouting in the sea in the distance. He couldn't see or hear clearly because it was too far, but the sound got clearer as the ship approached more and more. Who is it? Damn it. Damn it. Save me. The ship passing by. What? What's going on? As the noise got louder and louder, everyone got out from their rest and then looked beyond the deck. A familiar ship that was half sunk and destroyed. People were shouting from above the giant ship that was smaller than the one they had but could still carry 50 people. It seems like they have gotten stuck on a rock while running away after getting attacked. They had stopped sinking because they were caught on top of the rock, but it was clear what would happen to them if they stayed like that. But they made a cold expression when they saw the people on the deck. I remember. It was hard to forget. Since they could remember the lines those guys had told them when they left them behind. It seems the situation has changed. They could save them if they used the controls, but there was no need to direct their ship into the area with the rocks. And those guys were well organized as a group and strong too. Once those guys come over on this ship then the balance will fall towards those guys in an instead. That wouldn't do. Johann laughed coldly and then shouted. Screw off. You bitches. Wahahaha. The other people started to laugh too. Since the view of others suffering while they were in safety was very pleasing. But while the people were laughing from this weirdly worked up situation, the ship started to tilt and turn. Ha! What is this? Ha! The people panicked as they looked at the center of the deck. And Hansu was turning the controls with a leisurely expression in that spot. A few people grinded their teeth as they shouted. What? Why are you turning it? They could not look over those guys if they took into account of the despair they had felt when those guys left them behind. But to go save them by turning the ship into an area where there might be rocks. But Hansu shook his head. It's better to have more on board. We should save those we can. Be friendly with them. The others shouted at Hansu's words. Goddammit. Do you even know what's over there? That's a region of rocks. Being strong was being strong, but is he even allowed to ignore them all and decide on his own just because he has the power? Even if the ship was his, there were 100 people on board, so why would he take the path that lead to danger? Johann was flustered from a different reason. What is that crazy guy even thinking? Johann grinded his teeth. He didn't want to give up all 100 people and Hansu. No, this was just the start. He might be able to get bigger once he got to the red zone. If he gets the 100 people and Hansu around him with himself as the center, his influence will increase in size like a snowball. But if that guy acts the way he wanted like that, then he had to give up one of the two. Since he can't tie them together if they hate each other. Damn. It is because he's still childish. There was no point of having a lot of people if they couldn't group up. No, it was actually worse. They had understood this in the tutorial stage already. And it was hard for them 100 and the people over there to mix. Since the enmity between them was big already. Why did they have to carry such people as them? It's not good. It's not good. Johann shook his head inwardly but then walked towards Hansu after fixing his impression. Why are you turning the ship? I'm not saying let's not save the people, but the inner parts of that place there is too dangerous. It's all rocks. And why are you approaching them if we don't even know what had turned them into such a mess? Are you trying to put 100 people in danger just to save 50 people? The people nodded their heads. Though they had thoughts of leaving the 50 people to die because they didn't like them, but the biggest reason, and the reason they wouldn't get hated for, was the thing Johann had said. Johann continued his speech. I understand that you are strong, but I believe you wouldn't be able to save us if the ship sinks, right? Hansu laughed and spoke. Are those two things the problem? Johann felt a little off from looking at the laughing Hansu, but he nodded. Though there were other reasons, it was a bit too embarrassing to speak out loud. Yeah. So we should. But even before he could finish his words, Hansu turned the control after shrugging. Everyone made expressions of satisfaction at that. The fact that Hansu hadn't ignored their words felt better than the fact that they had gained safety. It was the same for Johann too. Yeah. You aren't something that lives alone, isn't it good for the 100 of us to have a good relationship on the way? But there wasn't much reason why Hansu had changed the controls again. Well. They all got on anyway. Tuk to tutuk, these bitches. Repeat what you said before. Johann frowned at the voices that came from the back of the deck. Goddammit. The 50 who had gotten on the ship by throwing parts of the ship on the water and creating a path were staring at the 100 people who were originally on the ship. Though they were a few hundreds meters away, such a thing wasn't hard for them. But Hansu frowned. Don't be loud. It's coming soon. It was more advantageous the more people you had. What? Boom. Kududuk. Udadud. At the same time a noise of something getting destroyed and torn apart could be heard below. At the same time the expressions of the 50 people who had gotten on the ship turned pale. Fuck. Didn't it follow other ships? What? You guys know something. While Johann frowned and asked the guys who had come over, Hansu jumped on top of the railings and looked below. It came. The things that blocked the path that lead from the tutorial area to the starting point of the red zone. These guys couldn't come out of the water. Since they could only live in the water due to receiving the curse of the toxic waters. They didn't really have a way of eating people from one look, but the choice they made was very simple. If they couldn't go hunting for people, they just needed to pull the humans down. These guys recklessly attacked the ships passing from the tutorial area to the red zone and created holes. Then once the people sunk, they would wait for the bodies to get marinated by the toxic waste and then consume them once they get soggy enough. The fact that these guys who just got onto the ship had survived was due to them being on top of the rock. The most threatening part about these guys was that they could not come out of the waters, and from the humans' point of view they had to go into the toxic waters to kill them, so it would only be unattractive. They wouldn't even have gotten scratches if it was the 2,000-man ship, but a 500-man ship will constantly receive holes if those guys attacked. As he expected, the people who heard the noise below and went down came back screaming. "Goddamn bastards! They're putting holes on the floor. Swing your sword or something at least. Damn it. How do you want me to fight them if the toxic waters are pouring in? At least cut off the trident." Johann grinded his teeth within the chaos. Can we not even reach them? How were they going to attack the things below? Even if they were to use long-range attacks, then it will still take forever if they wanted to get rid of the guys sticking by the ship as well. And they couldn't jump into the sea when they didn't even know what was down there. Though they could resist the toxic waters for a while with resistances and skills, but it was still extremely dangerous. And they were holding on quite well because it was the 500-man ship. If it was a smaller ship, then it would have become a mess in a moment. Damn it. Those with reinforced skills come here. They had to jump in and get them off somehow. And the people with defensive skills such as reinforce would survive in the waters and be able to fight. Since reinforce, apart from raising the resistance, had also to a certain point the effect of blocking external matters. But the people frowned as they backed off. Damn it. I wouldn't go in either. Johann grinded his teeth. He didn't even know how strong the things below were. And even if they were to get rid of the toxic waters, how would anyone jump into the dark seas where you can't even see everywhere? Most people were afraid of plunging into unknown depths. Hansu spoke as he looked at them. I don't need you guys, so people with reinforced skills go down below and remove the tridents from them. Since the newcomers have all gotten on, let's go pay for the meal. People with skills fight them by sticking close to the railings. What? Hey! What are you trying to do? Johann panicked as he looked at Hansu. The actions of Hansu, who was stretching his body while looking at the water below from the railings, was quite obvious. It means that he will go into the waters. Is he insane? Johann panicked. That guy was not a guy who could die in such a lame way. Though he was strong, there were still things called attributes. This was an extremely unfavorable battlefield if one didn't have a skill like a shield. But Hansu wasn't listening to Johann's words already. Demonic Dragon's reinforcement. Let's see how good it is. The reward he had gotten for clearing the third dungeon. The legacies that no one had numbered because no one had found them yet. 2 golden and dark lights surrounded Hansu as if they were about to explode from his body, and when his body could not be seen after getting shrouded in light, he jumped into the water. Quiet. And soon, with a loud explosive sound, a slab of meat of something in toxic waters skyrocketed from the side of the ship. Proofreader's note: artifact numbering was explained in the beginning of the Sky Road arc. This is a sponsored chapter. Poor Ecchi had to work until 5 a.m. Chapter 54. Red Zone 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chi-Yik. Hansu's body was covered in 2 different colors. And the toxic waters from all around tried to get in and melt down Hansu's body, but the red runes endlessly sent mana into the demonic dragon's reinforcement which covered Hansu's body. Good. It should at least be this much. Otherwise the suffering he went through at the 3 gateways wouldn't have been worth it. The reward for the second gateway was runes. Killing the endless beasts and surviving until one gets to red runes. But that was basically the preparation for the third gateway. If the first gateway was a place prepared to reward the person finding it, the third gateway was a gateway for those who were truly worthy. And the third gateway that had appeared in front of Hansu who had reached red runes. Even if it was something that hundreds of people fought together, he still had to fight it alone. Even if it was something that they had just glanced at, as long as the testy had experienced it, then it will appear in front of them after getting adjusted to the red rune level. And the thing that had appeared in front of Hansu. A dragon, the most well-balanced existences. They had a different origin from humans and were of a different grade as well. And among those born as such that have chosen the path of the demon, the most twisted being. Their power was something that couldn't even be explained with words. Hansu had seen it before when he had been traveling about in the deep parts of the abyss. And the humans who had seen it guarding the path on the way to the crystal decided to invest 3 more years in order to go around by penetrating through the territory of 2 ruler races. Since they had no confidence in winning at all. Fighting 2 ruler races seemed better than fighting that thing. And he was very shocked when such a thing had appeared at the third gateway in a weaker state. Since he didn't know that the things he had seen in the past will come out in a weaker state or not. I almost fainted. Even if they were all at the red rune stage, if the races were different, then the difference between each other was tremendous. Though that thing had only been at 0.01% of the red rune, Hansu still had to put his life on the line and fight it. And the skill that had come out after a desperate struggle. Actually, this name was merely something that he had given it temporarily. Since the 0 numbering artifacts were things that only existed within the fantasies of people. The numbering series were the most outstanding things that the humans had found out and numbered. Of course there were people who had made such thoughts as this. And these things were called 0 numbering artifacts. And in Hansu's opinion, the skill he had gained this time definitely had the qualifications for it. It's amazing. The number of runes within his body were jumping about crazily. Hansu, who was estimating on him the effect of the toxic water that was trying to burn his body, grabbed the neck of the cursed survivor that was charging at him as he nodded and then pulled out its spine. Kududuk. As the spine of the survivor who had the form of a merfolk was pulled out, the survivor was shredded into bits. 7. Good. Hansu sent in the power of the demonic dragon reinforcement within it and then threw it around in all directions. Sheraruk. The bone pieces, which had a tremendous amount of force, pierced through the waters and pierced into the necks of the merfolk-shaped survivors who were fervently piercing holes on the bottom of the ship. He didn't know what they were shouting because they were underwater, but their rage could be clearly felt. They flapped their tails and started to charge at Hansu in a crazed manner. Hansu just dodged their tridents and then swung his hands around and crushed their wrists. Kududuk. They screamed as they dropped their tridents. Hansu grabbed that trident with his right hand and penetrated the necks of those who had been charging at him in a straight line. He then twisted his body to pull out the trident that was embedded in its neck as he spread the spine that had come along with it all around like a projectile again. The merfolk who had seen this all hesitated. 12 out of the 30 of them had been eradicated just like that. And the attacks from above had been getting stronger, and the work of putting holes on the ship was getting harder to do. The swords that had been coming out from the inside. If this continued, then they would all get massacred before they could sink the ship. They looked at each other and then retrieved the trident as they started to retreat quickly. Trident. This is pretty useful. The durability of those guys were so good that it wouldn't melt in the toxic waters. Though the durability slowly decreased when in contact with air, but it was good enough to use for 3 days. Hansu gathered all 8 tridents that were sinking slowly as he swam to the bottom of the ship which they had put holes into. And he quickly entered into the hole where the water was quickly pouring into. Chwak. Hit its neck. It came in. Tuck. Uha. You should swing after checking first. Those with reinforcements, who had been attacking the tridents which were piercing the bottom of the ship, swung their swords out of reflex when something popped out but then made shocked expressions when they saw that it was a human. Hansu shook off all the toxic waters and then approached a corner of the basement of the ship. Hansu's hands flew about towards the Arun trees. Kududak. And soon a few planks that were a bit rough but still looked decent had been created. Hansu put that on the ground as he blocked the hole where the water was coming in from. Though it had been blocked off by the wooden plank, the waters still came in because the holes were rather large. Hansu plugged it with the plank and then broke off the remaining Arun tree bits into the shape of nails and then pushed it in with his fingers. The material of the ship was really hard, but it wasn't so hard that the sharp Arun tree shard couldn't pierce it. When it had been blocked off to a certain degree, Hansu squeezed the kelk's mucus sacs over it as he plugged in the gaps. Hurry. Let's do it too. Damn it. How did he push it in that easily? It won't go in. The people saw how Hansu had done it and quickly retrieved the materials as they started to plug up the holes like Hansu and nailed it. They couldn't push it in with their fingers like Hansu, but they were able to fix it in place somewhat by using their weapons as hammers and smashing it down. And then they squeezed the kelk's mucus sacs over it to close the gaps. Damn it. It really stings. Use some healing skills please. Anyways, what do we do with the water there? The people looked at the toxic waters that had come up to the point where it splashed about with a slightly uncomfortable expression. Hansu spoke as he climbed up. If you leave it alone it will evaporate. You will breathe in the evaporated gas if you're in here, so let's all go up. It was okay above since the air dispersed it away, but your health will decrease if you breathe it for prolonged amounts of time in an enclosed space. Ahuk. Everyone started to quickly head towards the deck at those words. Since nobody wanted to breathe in the evaporated gas of the toxic waters. Hansu came up and breathed in deeply. Though my health decreased slightly. This is rather amazing. There were people who were cautiously looking at the sea on the top of the ship. The new 50 people and the original 100 people stared at the sea and then glared at each other after judging that the merfolk had all backed off. Hansu smirked as he spoke at that moment. Don't fight over there and look out over there. You can see some good stuff. Hansu finished those words as he looked at the giant tree which he could see in the far distance. A giant tree which was located beyond their goal, the red zone, which could be seen across the distance. Hansu looked at the dried-up trunk of the giant tree that pierced the clouds as he mumbled inwardly. Dead World Tree. The background and the foundation of the that they were going to work on from now. And at that moment a loud shout was heard from the person who had been scouting at the tallest place on the ship. I can see the land. I can see the red zone. What? People rushed towards the deck at those words. And made expressions of joy. We arrived already. Johann also made sounds of joy. A land that rose above the sea could be seen in the distance. Damn it. I don't know what will come out, but it's better than this damnable sea. It was better to fight. Thinking of fighting against the guys who only pierced with their tridents under the water stressed them to death. Since they will get massacred before being able to see anything if the ship were to sink. People have to live with their feet on land. But while they were sighing in relief, the ship betrayed their expectations. We aren't getting off there. The ship followed the path that the ferry had set as it spun around the land in front of them and continued to sail across the sea. And everyone was disappointed as they saw this. It was an island and not land. It looked like land, but it seems like it wasn't the destination. As I thought. They told us it took 3 days. The people spat out disappointed sighs as they looked at the vast sea to the back of the island. But Johann was looking at something else at that moment. Is that possibly a root and not an island? Though it was covered with dirt, parts of the island which looked like wooden stumps could be seen. As if a part of a giant root had come out of the ocean and a thin layer of dirt was covering it. It just looked like an island since it was so huge. Johann made a sick expression after seeing that. Is it possibly the root of the giant tree over there? It spread out this far. The tree root, which had the form of a half-submerged island, looked very similar to the giant tree trunk that was holding up the skies in the distance. Well, if it's a tree of that size. It seemed like the parts of the root that was above the water is merely a very thin root of the tree. But he thought to himself that if it's a tree of that size, the root should at least be this much. Is this the good stuff you were talking about? Johann, who had been looking at the island the ship had passed, asked Hansu with a bitter expression. It was clearly something which one could not see elsewhere easily. Since trees of such a size which devoured the mountain ranges with its roots and even had it spread above the seas couldn't been seen in the world where they come from, even if they died and came back to life. But Hansu shook his head as he pointed towards something in the distance. That's the highlight of the show. What? Everyone looked at the direction Hansu had pointed to. A slightly different direction from the red zone they were heading to. When the people focused their gazes and searched around, they could slowly see something. Is that possibly alive? Something much larger than the tree trunk that they had mistaken for an island. The tree root which looked like the island was giant, but the thing they could see in the distance was at a different level. Though they were extremely far away, it still came into their eyes. The part that was submerged below couldn't even be guessed, but the back that was rising up from the waters was much larger than a decent island, and the fin that was rising above it felt like they were looking at an extremely tall cliff. The giant fin-like structure slowly moved across the sea and was heading towards the island they had come from. Though it had moved slowly, it was so big that the distance had been crossed in an instant. And the thing with the giant fin screamed out as it opened its mouth. Kuwa, wake. Yuwak. Fuck. It had only moved slightly, but the whole sea shook. And the creature that had moved bit apart the tree root as it started to devour it. Pududaduk. Yudaduk. Yuwak. Hold on to the ship tightly. As the root that had run below the ship started to get ripped up by its mouth, the ship started to rock and roll like a wave. If it was a small ship, then that simple rock and roll would have crushed it apart. If they had been slightly slower at going past that place, then they would have all died without being able to do anything. While people were holding onto the ship with all their strength, Hansu was also making an anxious expression. Since though he had said it was a good view, that thing was definitely not something cute. The ships that started off from the 10,000 tutorial areas will arrive on one of the thousands of routes that spread out from the dead world tree according to the path that the fairy had set. Since the only place to live within the toxic sea is above the dead root. A structure where the people who started off from the tutorial would climb up from that location. Though it was a root, it was basically the size of a mountain range. That was why it was called the. And that thing constantly swam around the toxic sea and ate whenever a world tree root grew out. A fish of calamity. The result of genetic biology of demonic creatures of the natives of the that they created in order to defend their race from the harsh environment, and one of the 5 calamities that dried the to death. The place where the world tree had dried to death from the 5 calamites had simply turned into hell and had fallen down into ruin. Since a tree which had its roots ripped apart could not live properly. It had the ability to devour everything, but then it wouldn't have anything to eat anymore, so it as if it was farming, slowly going around and biting off the roots of the world tree bit by bit. A giant mutant that seemed like it was born to kill the world tree. The past, he had seen it clearly. That thing had devoured the root next to the red zone. He had arrived in a mere 3 days. And of course, there was nothing much to say about the fate of the newbies and the veterans who were standing on that route. Hansu, who had seen the giant beast fish which participating in killing a world, stabilized his mind as he turned the controls towards the calamity fish which had devoured the tree root whole. It's now time for me to pay for my own meal. Kururk. ENV. The controls turned the ship aggressively under Hansu's hands. Since that thing had just filled up its stomach, it will slowly move towards next tree root that it will eat. Towards a giant starting area root, unlike the snack which it just had. About 2 weeks. I don't know for sure, but I don't have a lot of leisure. The thing he knew for sure was getting there and preparing to kill that thing. Since that was one of the duties he had received. Hey, fuck, what are you doing right now? Hey. Hi. The people looked at the direction of the ship and the direction of the giant beast and shouted at Hansu in panic. Is he insane right now? To follow such a thing when they have found it out of luck and could have dodged from it. Even in such a situation, Johann spoke to Hansu. I don't know what you are thinking, but shouldn't you head to such a dangerous place after agreeing with everyone else? I thank you for letting us aboard, but you should at least listen to our opinions when we are on the same boat. Hansu nodded at those words. I see, there are people who probably won't agree with this. Yeah. So let's. I shall let you get off now then. I really need to go there, so what do you want me to do? People who want to get off, raise your hands. Hansu stared at the surrounding sea as he spoke. Proofreader's note for information: I make the notes before reading the chapters ahead, so I don't know more than what you do. I didn't mean to imply demonic dragon reinforcement was an artifact, especially since it was described as a numbered legacy in the chapter. Hansu trying to revive the world tree, it will help all mankind that come through tutorial in the future. Probably what he meant by paying for his own meal. As compensation for the sacrifice of his comrades that allowed him to go back through time, he needs to do something concrete to help humanity as a whole. This is a sponsored chapter. Chapter 55. Red Zone 5, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Kudududuk. A boat which was covered with wooden planks in numerous places had arrived at the location where a route could be seen. End route. The end part of the route where the world tree's route started at. Though it was an end part of the route, it was so big that it looked like a piece of land. We arrived. Hansu spoke towards the people who had been jumping onto the burning tree route. Hey. Go with smiles. And don't think about it too seriously. There's still 2 weeks left. If you keep climbing up, then you'll have your safety guaranteed. That's really comforting. Seriously. They could still see the images of the movements of the thing that they followed on their boat that ripped apart the island like tree root. Damn it. I should get away fast. Johann, who had yet to calm down his anger, looked at Hansu coldly and then started to ponder. What do I do? Do I stick with him a little longer? Johann glanced at Hansu. He has yet to push them away. And as he heard it, this guy seemed to have a weird psychic power. It would helpful if he took him. But Johann shook his head as he looked at the 150 people who were glaring at Hansu with eyes of resentment. I don't think we can go together with that guy. If they were to go along, it'll be very comfortable for the time being. Since he is definitely strong. But he could not control him. If that guy suddenly goes, then they could nothing about it. He clearly figured this out from the earlier incident. They had no way of talking back at his words, which told them to jump off. And him going into the sea while covered in lights and crushing apart the merfolk solidified this even further. Does he have no weakness? If he could control a guy like this properly, then it'll be of great help. And it seemed like he could figure it out if he traveled alongside him a bit longer. But Johann shook his head. The valley has been dug way too deep to mediate between that guy and the 150 people behind him. Nobody likes somebody who increases the chances of danger. It was time to part ways. The head of a snake is better than a dragon's tail. *PR note. He enjoys being a big fish in a small pond, rather than a lackey to Hansu the dragon. Johann, who had chosen the 150 people over Hansu, looked at Hansu and spoke. Let's go our own ways. Since you and us don't really seem to get along very well. Hansu shrugged his shoulders. I'm a bit busy now too. Hansu thought of his conversation with Keldian as he looked at the 150 people disappearing into the depths of the blazing roots and ruins. The 5 calamities were basically like natural disasters for those who crossed the red zone. It was not something designed to be killed but rather dodged or endured. And they didn't have the leisure to think about how to prevent the natural disasters. Since in the red zone one didn't have enough leisure to think about such things. One would spend time figuring out how to dodge a hurricane rather than how to get rid of it. And even more so if there are imminent dangers around them such as tigers and murderers roaming around. They had prepared with the knowledge of all the remaining humans but that was not enough. He had to think of how to act perfectly. But for him to do so the situation and intel was not proper. And because of this he had to find somebody who could fill this up with experience. Like people trying to climb Mount Everest that after they had completed their preparation, were still looking for a Sherpa on site. Like an adventurer exploring the Amazon forest, even after getting a whole truck for preparations and plan for months, he would still look for a local guide. A third-year adventurer who would try to hunt the calamity fish, something that no one else would even think of attempting. She could be anywhere in this vast world since that woman had the ability to be anywhere whether it is the end route, base route, middle route or even the trunk. Of course one would be at that level if they spent 3 years in the other world even if they had focused on hunting down the calamity fish. Well. It's normal for people to have gone up already. It actually seemed impossible to find her in 2 weeks but Hansu knew a way to find her. She should probably be at the cross right now. It wasn't the cross of revival. Since such things only exist in the tutorial area. But the fact that it was made to find somebody one missed was similar. If you think of the reason why Camille Rowe was attempting the calamity fish hunting then it is obvious that she would be around the cross at this moment. Thousands of giant crosses that the Helper clan had erected on every end route. It seems our direction is the same. Hansu looked at the direction where Johann had disappeared but then looked at his boat. And then he jumped onto the boat and started to pull out all the planks that had been holding out the toxic waters. Kurururu. And soon the boat that had been enduring the 3 days of sails made large noises as it sunk beneath the toxic sea. Hansu who had cleaned up everything moved his footsteps towards the direction where Johann and the others had disappeared to. Damn it. Though we've experienced it on the 3rd floor of the tower it's really hot. Johann spat out curses. The fire that had been set all around them without anything to burn was constantly blazing. They had experienced this slightly on the 3rd floor but back then they had hoped that the 3rd floor would end soon. But now they had to constantly live in such a place. It seems that water would be the biggest issue. How do we get food? They had hunted the beasts and traveled while eating the meat and drinking their blood on the 3rd floor. But the beasts here were different. They had encountered many beasts on the way here already. Though it was easy to catch them because 150 people had gathered but they could not eat it even if they tried. Damn. This is a problem. But Johann shook his head. There was probably a way since they wouldn't leave them to die just like that. At that moment somebody next to Johann shouted out loudly. Ah! That! Isn't that the cross? What? At those words everyone's eyes flipped. The cross. The eyes of the people who couldn't find the chance to throw the people next to them onto the hole because they were suppressed by alliances or the clan started to shine. But Johann shouted out loudly. Wait! Wait! The fairy had clearly told us that there aren't any more revivals. Everyone calm down. If we fight here then we all die. Everyone made slightly disappointed expressions at those words. But let's still have a look at it. It seems man-made. Wouldn't it be dangerous? One person asked carefully. The cross. They did not know who made it but could guess why they had to some degree. Since it'll be hard for people who had experienced it in the tutorial to just pass by it. It was in order to attract people that it copied that cross and was made of steel. It's so blunt that it's even more confusing. But the answer to their worries was heard from above them and among them. Don't worry. Those who are careful are quite annoying. They need people to come to it. If they made the cross, then why not go over and have a look at it? You could finish it off after grouping up. Everyone's expression froze at the man who had appeared above the blazing ruins in an instant. Since they didn't know how he had made his entrance. Did he run here from the cross? While people were being cautious of him, the man counted their heads in an instant and then nodded. Let's see, 148 people. Quite nice. For such a number to come in a group without a lord. What do you want? It was clear to them that this guy was someone who had come earlier. He looked stronger than them, and there was also something very different about him from the people of their tutorial area. A foreigner. And he has no problem conversing with us. It seems like there wasn't any problem with them having different languages. The blue-eyed man chuckled as he spoke. Don't be too impudent. We are I guess something like a savior in your words. What? You see, the fairies don't come out from now on. So we act as some form of help. You are clearly an angel. You expect us to believe that. To help without anything in return. How did this guy expect them to trust him? The man shook his head at Johann's words and spoke. There are always people like you. People who are very suspicious. But remember. It's good to be suspicious, but if that pisses others off, then it'll be hard to live long. What? You just need to thank the people from my group from now on. There's no reason to follow us, so just listen. What? Iris Valentine. She's the one who had created our clan 20 years ago and had gone up. Let's see. After that is a steady backbone of the clan, Kyle Cooper. Beck Jongsang. Ark Mariangt, these three. You don't need to know about the details. How would these guys meet 3 of the 7 departed souls? The man who shook his head from side to side spoke again. And after this, give thanks to the other clansmen who prevent guys like you from getting killed. Keep going. The man laughed as he looked at the people's expressions turning darker. What? Does we want to have a go at it? Actually, even for him it'll be hard to win if everyone in front of his eyes charged at him. If he was alone, of course. The man spoke for the last time. You should least thank our 30,000 helpers running around in this shitty end route, though they were sponsored to do so. 30,000. The man smiled at Johann, who had replied to his words with a fearful expression. Well. Though only 6 to 7 people came to each route. But the man swapped these words back. It was more convenient to suppress these guys with numbers from the get-go. And in reality these guys, who had been making enraged expressions, prepared to pay attention with dispirited expressions after hearing about 30,000 people. They're chicks. Chicks. This was a clear evidence that these guys were beginners. Since those who had roamed around the red zone for a bit wouldn't get scared at hearing the number 30,000, but rather more at the names he had said prior to that. Well. That's why we exist. Whatever happened, he needed to do everything he was tasked to do so these guys don't just die off. The man looked at Johann as he spoke. There's a few things I must give you. But there are a few pieces of advice. Listen carefully. These are things to prevent you from just getting killed off. Speak. He didn't know what this guy and the other people were helping them for, but there was nothing bad about intel. The man continued to speak. The place where you guys are at is the end route. This is the place where newly hatched chicks roam around. And because of this it wouldn't really matter for you guys to argue here and there normally, but. The man looked around at the confused expressions and then spoke again. It's a quite harsh place, so there are a lot of people with different circumstances. So theoretically some people, who have no reason to be here, come down all the way to the end roots. He was speaking aloud in front of these guys, but he was also only about at the level of middle root. But those who are at the base root or the trunk or even above that, sometimes come down to here, the end root. So the things you guys need to do is not to randomly quarrel with random people just because they move in small groups. If you don't want to get ripped apart. And it's even more dangerous to target somebody just because they're pretty. These people wouldn't usually touch the newly hatched chicks at the end root due to a few unspoken rules, but there was no one who would tell them to ignore getting aggravated. The man who had finished speaking rested a bit and then looked around. Let's see. Camille Rowe. Where did this lady go? If they were going to experience it anyway. Wouldn't it be better for them to get the full experience? And coincidentally Camille Rowe was nearby. These guys are pretty confident with their numbers. But they'll start to crawl on the floor once they see it. If those who were doing well in the tutorial think that they would do well here, then it was a very big misunderstanding. Once they were out here there were different rules and another power. The tutorial was basically a place where they tone down the difficulty so they can prepare for the other world, and in a place like this where one can get stronger day by day, 1 or 2 years of difference was very big. But at that moment Johann had spoken towards that man. Didn't you say that you wouldn't touch beginners? That you would get killed if you do so? At those words the man who was searching for Camille Rowe nodded. That's right. Then what's that? As I know that guy is a beginner just like us. HNNG. The moment the man looked at the direction where Johann was pointing towards, a fierce shockwave and screams resonated throughout the blazing ruins. Boom! Come at me. You bastard. No, seriously. What's the problem? I'm telling you I'll help you kill the calamity fish. This bitch. The people who were watching the ruins being destroyed shrugged their shoulders and looked at the guy who said he was from the Helper clan, and the man made a helpless expression at the unexpected situation. Hansu shrugged his shoulders after looking at Camille Rowe who was charging at him. It seems like they didn't really tell me about her personality being nasty. Was the suggestion I gave her that unreasonable? It seems like there was a misunderstanding, but if things were to go on like this then they needed a serious talk with each other. Some preparations are needed. To talk seriously. Hansu started to cover his body with demonic dragon reinforcement in order to progress the talk. Proofreader's note: man, Hansu is an expert at talking with the ladies. Chapter 56. Calamity Fish Hunting, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cool. Camille Rowe mumbled quietly as she looked at something gigantic in the distance. It's coming this time too. The newcomers wouldn't be able to see yet, but her skill that was fitted for the perception stat at the red rune level 50% allowed her vision to see things extremely far away. Camille, who had been shaking her head, looked at the things she had prepared so far. Arukel's poison and Ketelan's sword. Myron dagger and waterproof sheet. And Camille Rowe, who had been looking over the things she had prepared while grinding her teeth, sighed as she looked at the fins that could be seen in the distance. Could I really avenge them? She had been holding on to her life with the sheer determination to kill that thing for over 3 years. But there only one thing she had gained from this. Endless fatigue. It's tiring. It was basically larger than a mountain. There was probably no other organism that fit the name of fish of calamity better than that. She had went into and returned back alive from within its body over 13 times, but this wasn't because she got used to it. It was because she had gotten blocked at a line which she could not cross. It would be easier to break a rock using an egg. It felt like she was digging a mountain with just a spoon. And as she continued, the loneliness just amplified. Since there wasn't anyone who wanted to help her in her plan of hunting down the calamity fish. If a really strong guy, or someone who actually wanted to do it together existed. Camille, who had been making a tired expression, shook her head. No. No. If it was something that could be caught just like that, then she would have done so already. While Camille was shaking her head while clenching down onto her teeth, a voice calling her name could be heard. Camille Rowe. Right. Dot. At those words Camille made a cold expression as she surrounded her body with reinforcement and activated skill which protected her from sudden attacks. With this, she could defend her body against existences of the trunk. People who purposely searched her out are more dangerous than people whom you meet by chance. Camille Rowe, who had held up the short dagger from her waist, held up spear up towards her back where the voice came from, but then sighed instead. It's a newly hatched chick. She felt stupid for getting tense from getting her name called. She couldn't figure it out from his looks, but she still knew from one look. Not having any artifacts was secondary, he didn't have the which one needed in order to not starve in the. Even if he lost it, if you take into account that the Helper clan always supplied you with it, meant that this guy was a chick that hadn't even finished the Helper's instructions. Anyways, how did he figure out my name? But Camille's tension exploded again with the following sentence. There's a few things I need to talk to you about the Calamity Fish. Let's have a talk. Calamity Fish. And herself. There was only one kind of people who would come find her if you take into account these two things. Are you perhaps a Quadratus? Damned guys. Are they trying to disturb me again? People who worship the four dirty beasts that gnawed upon the world tree along with the Calamity Fish. Of course they didn't have a good relationship with her who tried to kill the Calamity Fish. Hansu mumbled inwardly at Camille's words. I remember. They thought there were only 4 of these. He would have thought so as well if he hadn't heard the stories from the original inhabitants of this place, the Elvenheims. Hansu shook his head. I'm here because I have an interest in hunting the Calamity Fish. So I need your help. Camille was flustered. Does that thing really look that easy? The fact that he knew about the Calamity Fish meant that he had seen it on the way here. There was nothing surprising about it. Since it wasn't hard to see it as long as you don't get crushed by it. Actually, it was hard to miss something so big. But to think of hunting it down after seeing it. Camille started to get slightly pissed. She had tried and only increased her despair. But this newly arrived chick was talking about the Calamity Fish as if it was going to the lake to fish. And even asking her to help. Camille breathed in and out deeply. Yeah. Why am I trying to argue with a first year? Getting angry here was actually laughable. Leave. The moment Camille spat out a word and turned around, Hansu opened his mouth. Don't you have to save your sibling? If you hunt that thing, then the chances of your sibling, who might come anytime, surviving increases by a large amount. This bastard. Where did you hear about that? Did I make a mistake? Hansu scratched the back of head while watching Camille warming up her body. I failed the rapport. Kongte this bastard. Wait. Let's talk about it. Talk. Shut up. Boom. Boom. Camille's short spear sliced their air. Something which Camille had attained 2 months ago at the base root. The hardness and sharpness had saved Camille from dangerous situations multiple times now. Camille's short spear, which was filled up with, swung down at Hansu. She didn't really have thoughts of reinforcing the edge either. Since she just wanted to beat him down despite being quite infuriated. But her thoughts were completely different now. Kududududuck. This bastard. He's a beginner. The flying spear met with his fist and got deflected to the side. Camille looked at that scene with disbelief. With a guy who doesn't have anything on, I just. Damn it. This is really embarrassing. A guy who didn't have anything on his body. There was no beggar like this. But she could guess too as why he didn't have any artifacts left. That I can't even imagine what you need to go through in order to gain something like that. This guy was not a normal guy if you just take into account of the fact that he had attained that dark golden reinforcement without anything else. You couldn't gain anything for free in the tutorial stage, which meant that in order to attain something like that, he had gone into an equally tricky place. All the artifacts that he had previously would have all been smashed apart. Kugagagung. Damn it. He blocked it again. Camille grinded her teeth as she looked at her short spear, which was just about to lose its edge. That reinforcement's defense was so high to the point that he was blocking her spear's attacks with his bare skin and even dulling the edges of it. Damn it. The density of the magic force, one of the three factors that determined the value of the reinforcement. It amplified the durability of the weapon or armor that was covered with the reinforcement and as well as the destructive power. For it to have such an amplification even when it was over bare skin. She wouldn't really say anything if it was just that. How high is the amplification of the runes? *PR note. How much stats are improved by the reinforcement, the second factor in determining the quality of the reinforcement. With just these two she could tell the quality of the reinforcement this guy has is high beyond reason. Since she had never even seen something like before. Camille, who had been fiercely fighting with him, bit her lips. She felt like dying from embarrassment due to the fact that she was fighting on par with a first year who didn't even have any artifacts, but she had to acknowledge what she had to. She could not win at this rate. But she had a hidden card which could turn the situation. With this much. If I use the special skill of my... Camille thought up to this point and then pulled back her body instantly. Hansu spoke to Camille, who had made distance from him and was glaring at him. Are you done? You aren't gonna keep going. Don't you have more things to show me? Camille clenched her teeth as she spoke. You think I'm stupid? You didn't even use the special skill. Three factors that determine the quality of the reinforcement. First. Amplification of runes. Second. Magic force's efficiency and power. And third. Something which every reinforcement had. If you say that the true worth of a reinforcement was determined by the third factor, the special skill, that you probably wouldn't be wrong. The Blood Jade reinforcement had the ability to use blood to create a very hard magic force, and Beast reinforcement could change parts of the user's body into that of a beast. With such a reinforcement, she didn't know what the special skill was, but it was sure to be incredible, and he had yet to take it out. I feel like I'll die of embarrassment. Damn it. She acknowledged the fact that her battle strength was a bit weaker than the other third years. Since she focused on hunting the calamity fish while others were getting stronger. But for her to lose to somebody who came from the tutorial area. Okay. I accept the fact that you have a good hand. Actually, her mind was more at ease after accepting it. Since she just needed to think while ignoring the fact that he was a first year. But that was that and this was this. Camille, who had calmed down, looked at Hansu as she spoke. You aren't thinking of beating down the calamity fish with just that, right? With just that trifling ability. She had thought that he didn't really have anything, but nothing changed even after she found out that he had something. No, this was actually more infuriating. Since the fact that he had come here to hunt the calamity fish with just that battle power alone was quite absurd. If you could beat that down with battle power, then everyone would have charged at it and beaten it down already. The amount of people who had been eaten by the calamity fish over the past 20 years had reached tens of thousands. But nobody had the thoughts of getting revenge against the calamity fish. Since they saw what happened to those who challenged the calamity fish. And those who had experienced it were just unlucky. If it was easy, then why would I have come to you? I came because it's hard. Help me. I have a plan anyways. He wouldn't have come to Camille if that was something he could beat down with strength. Camille's expression turned colder and colder. You really talk with ease. If you came to me thinking that I'll be of help to you, then you have a huge misconception. You think I have something great. It seems like he had heard something about her and come to find her, but that was a huge misconception. A person who tried hard to hunt the calamity fish. Those were nice words. But reality was that she was just a retard. But Hansu just shook his head. You have gone in and come out from the calamity fish before. I just need that experience and the preparations you have made. Camille smirked at those words. Ha! I have indeed gone in and come out before. But I have done just that. Camille, who had taken a breather, opened her mouth with a cold expression. I hope he gets lost after hearing this. It was tiring to go against him. Camille opened her mouth resolutely. Listen well. You bastard. On the first challenge we left behind 27 people inside that thing. Only I came out. The only thing we gained was how the scales felt like. That thing had gulped down the tree root that her parents were on. While she was away for just a moment, the route where her parents, whom had come with her and had lost an arm to save her and crossed the tutorial together with her, had been devoured whole. If Camille herself was a bit unluckier, then she would have been eaten just like that too. Of course Camille was filled up with rage and gathered 27 comrades in similar situations as her and proceeded with her plan. The result was misery in itself. But people in the red zone weren't really surprised. Since this was the estimated result. They didn't even laugh at her. Since nobody would laugh at a kid who lost after going against an adult. Since it was an obvious thing. And then, on the second attempt, I gathered 118 people who were filled up with greed and then went in. Though we did go in a bit deeper this time. And since 2 people had survived back, it was a huge progress, right? From the third attempt nobody helped me, so I climbed up and down as I prepared for it and attempted it 10 more times by myself. And I failed them all. What kind of help do you want from somebody like me? The only thing you have seen is the outer part of that thing. You presumptuous bastard. Ha! What do you know? She started out calmly, but by the time she finished she was close to crying. 13 attempts. She had searched the method to deal with it by researching its weakness and climbing up and down the red zone endlessly. And the only thing she had gained from this: defeat and despair. And the method to run away. She wasn't attempting for her parents' sake at this point. She was lying to herself in her head, but she already knew that it was impossible. There was only one reason why she was still trying. Since she thought that this was the most significant way to die in this damnable place. Wouldn't dying here while avenging be better than getting killed by someone's blade or getting ripped apart by a beast on the way up? No. It's not even that. Camille wasn't even doing that properly. If she really wanted to die while avenging her parents, then she would have gone in much deeper and into more dangerous places. But she was just a retard who couldn't even do that due to fear and was using her brother, who nobody knew of his arrival in this place, as an excuse and stayed alive. And in result, she was spending her time while stuck in between her ambition to stay alive and her impossible revenge. God damn it. Camille felt into a state of lethargy and lost her rage. Since the words she had spat out in order to stimulate that guy had twisted her chest. But Hansu shrugged his shoulders as he looked at that Camille. You failed that because I wasn't here. Don't worry. I need you and I can kill the calamity fish if you help me. Camille made an expression of disbelief at his attitude of just saying what he wanted to say. At the same time she felt like she was crazy. Because she felt like she wanted to trust this crazy guy once. Camille made a complicated expression as she looked at the guy who told her he needed her when everyone was ignoring her for doing such absurd things and was even telling her that he will fulfill her wish. Damn it. I must have been really lonely. To get attracted by such random words. At this point she was getting quite curious. To see what was his basis for his confidence. No, there was something she was more curious of before that. Let me ask you one thing. Why are you trying to kill that? The artifact that would come out once you killed that thing. Or revenge like herself? Camille was curious about that. As to why he wanted to kill the calamity fish. When Camille, who had turned lethargic after pouring out her feelings, asked with a tired expression, Hansu pondered for a moment and then spoke out. I want try saving about 1 billion people. What? No. Is it about 1.5 billion? The chances of your brother surviving will increase by a lot as well. Good right. This guy isn't some normal maniac. Camille made an expression of fear. If you agree then let's start. Hansu smiled. Ha! The helper clansman, who had been making an astonished expression at the fight with Camille Rowe, looked at Johan and asked. He really came on the same boat as you. He's really a newcomer. Yes, seriously. The helper clansman made an expression of disbelief and then looked at the 150 people as he spoke. Never ever piss somebody off by trying to copy something like that. That's an outlier. He can but we can't. Though we are 150 people. The helper clansman smirked at Johan's words as he spoke. I wouldn't stop you but I don't really recommend it. Damn it. Johan clenched his teeth at the clansman's words and then glared at Hansu with an expression full of annoyance. Proofreaders note this is a sponsored chapter. Some edits were just made on chapter 55, including the name of one of the 7 departed souls, Baek Jongsang. Chapter 57. Calamity Fish Hunting, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Are the arrangements complete now? One of the helper clansmen who had been looking at the sea above the 2184 cross, which showed the number of the cross, spoke as he loosened up his body as he saw that no more boats were coming down. We're done somewhat. We gave the juicers to Johan's guys earlier and gave them basic explanations as well. They'll be fine from now on. The most busy time for them, the clans, was now. When the people of the tutorial come in, they had to give them basic notices and then spread out again. And they needed to gather the basic information of every newcomer every year and organize it. How are the standards for the guys this time around? His comrade, who had been standing next to him, shrugged his shoulders at those words. You know how it is. That it increases a bit every year. Them fairies. They're only thorough in things like that. The man clicked his tongue. The fairies set up the tutorial so that the people would survive even if they were dropped in the end route here. And because of that the standards of those who go through the tutorial increase every year. The reason was very simple. Since the environment of the end route gets harsher as time goes on. TSK. The number of survivors would increase greatly if the calamity fish didn't exist. The location of where the newcomers drop is becoming closer towards the center of the world tree since those guys keep gnawing down the tree roots. If you take into account the fact that the level of the beasts increases the closer one gets to the giant world tree, it means that the difficulty of where newcomers land after the tutorial increases every year. And since they needed to set the standards of the newcomers to fit that, the difficulty of the tutorial increased and the survival rate decreased. You need to stay on the boat longer as well. If that thing disappeared then an amazing number of people out of those who are dragged here would be saved. Since the roots will grow back and the difficulty of the tutorial will get lowered to fit that. It is said that the survival rate of the first tutorial was 55%, which was much higher than now, when there were a lot of tree roots left. 14% of the people had survived last year, but it's only about 11% this year. About 3 billion more would come over but for the survival rate to be like this. The amount that had crossed over the past 20 years was about 3.5 billion. But the speed at which they were coming was increasing at a very rapid rate. As if something was pulling their world. Though the immediate survival rate had decreased, the number of newcomers had increased. But at this rate, in about 5 to 6 years from now all of humanity would be dragged here and then all get massacred in the tutorial. Damn it. The helper clansman made a bitter expression. Since the chances of his family being part of those who would get massacred was very high. If the difficulty of the tutorial gets reset because the calamity fish disappeared and the roots grow back, then the number of people will increase greatly, but sadly the calamity fish was not something humans could deal with. Well, it seems like some strange guys are popping out due to the increased difficulty though. And the man stared at the guy standing in front of Camille Rowe in the distance. A guy who had fought back and forth against Camille Rowe despite being a newcomer. No, he didn't even fight back and forth. Since the newcomer seemed to be much more calm even to his eyes. He didn't have any skills or artifacts. But he was still at that level. The rumors of this guy will get spread very fast. A scout might even come. The man who was standing atop of the cross mumbled inwardly as he looked at the guy walking towards him. Camille laughed absent-mindedly at Hansu's words. Damn it, whatever. It wouldn't be bad to fail for the 14th time anyways. She was going to make the attempt anyway. What difference would it make to take this ambitious guy along with her? Hansu opened his eyes wide at Camille Rowe's words and then looked at her. What are you saying? About failing? There's no time. We are definitely succeeding. If you failed about 13 times, then it's about time to succeed once. You prepared to escape from it as well. Perfect. Let's go. There's no time. There's 13 days and 18 hours left. If you take into account that thing's movement speed, then it'll arrive around then. But that was basically the time limit. It was better to prepare as soon as possible and kill it off in the distant sea. Since the amount of casualties will explode upwards once that thing goes insane at the last moment. Hansu got up from his seat as he finished his words. He's really confident to the point of damnation. He really makes one fall for him, god damn it. Camille clicked her tongue and asked as she looked at Hansu's back. What are you going to do first? Hansu shrugged his shoulders. I'm going to the Helper clan first. I should at least visit. Since I need to receive the juicer. He didn't have any intel, but the juicer was a necessity in order to not starve to death. Camille remembered what she had forgotten about at those words. Ah. Oh yeah, he was a beginner. She didn't even think about that because his actions were so off. Well, okay. I have some things to do as well. Camille got up from her seat and then walked towards the Helper clansmen who were guarding the cross. I really wish my sibling hasn't come yet. But sadly, the chances increased as time went on. Since the number of people who had been coming here over the tutorial had been increasing. At this pace, then all of the remaining people on Earth will transfer over to the other world in about 5 to 6 years. That was the reason why the 7 departed souls and many others who had the qualifications to go up stayed at the red zone to search around. In order to find their family or precious people who could come at any time. The reason why that Helper clan was able to be maintained was very simple as well. It was something born from the combined minds of those who wanted to stop the random deaths of their family or close people. The Helper clan was the place that the minds of those who didn't have the leisure to search for their family because of the harsh environment they're faced with but wanted to stop such things as death from happening supported. Since they might be able to meet each other as long they are alive. That person called Iris is amazing. How did she think of such a thing 20 years ago? Iris had gone up already, but her clan had remained behind to keep accepting newcomers and were taking care of the newcomers constantly with the support of those in other red zones. Of course, in the most basic ways only. Since nobody could take care of anything further than that. They helped with the most basic survival tactics and preparations, but surviving after fighting against a beast or other people was all up to themselves. Camille greeted one of the Helper clansmen after she arrived. It's been a while. Can I check the catalog? And take care of this newcomer? You're a VIP, of course. Let's see. Then the clansmen started to check the catalog. Usually they would only give basic warnings and the juicer. But for those who supported them a lot, there will be some more special services. If you give basic appearances or a name, then the newcomers of the helper clansmen spread about in thousands of end routes will search the person asked by a VIP. A person searched by a VVIP with a stronger backing will be checked to see if he was at the tutorial or not. Asterisk PR note. VVIP equals very important person. The helper clansman who had been searching around the catalog shook his head. It doesn't seem like they're here on this side of the routes. Though we can't check up the tutorial with the amount you supported. I don't know about the other routes, but all the intel will be gathered within 2 days, so come find us then. The man completed those words and then went upwards. With a few people behind him. And Camille knew the identities of those people. Those were the people who the VIP or the VVIP asked to find. Who? She had confirmed that they weren't here, but this was vexing in itself. Since there was no way to know if they hadn't been dragged into the other world or had died at the tutorial. But Camille shook her head. Focus on the calamity fish. Finding her sibling was not something she could do anyway. Camille spoke to Hansu, who had gathered the juicer and a few other things. Okay. Let's hear your plan. Hansu spoke with a very serious expression. Very simple. You will guide me and take me inside there. Then I will shove the hidden card I have prepared into a fatal location within its body. Shall I beat him up? Camille sighed, shook her head and then spoke. Well, that was basically the basic summary of it. Since you couldn't kill it from the outside. Though the problem was that he extremely simplified the process. Well. Okay. There's a lot of things to be prepared. I've prepared the boat already, though it's a 30-man boat. If that thing arrived at land and started to eat, then there wouldn't even be time to get inside it. Since the heavens will be falling apart. You needed to quietly approach it while it was swimming quietly and then go inside its body. Well, of course, quiet is relative to what it would be. Since huge tornadoes will be rushing around its body. Hansu shook his head. What are you going to do with a 30-man boat? Let's go with mine. What? I've prepared a 500-man boat. Hey! You crazy bastard! Did you just leave that behind? Camille shouted in shock. Why would he have done such a thing when there are so many people who desired boats? Hansu chuckled at those words. Don't worry. I've hidden it well. Let's go to the next subject. While Camille was shaking her head, Hansu checked the things Camille had prepared. The only reason why he had come to find Camille. Since she had already prepared the things which you could only gather at the base root or the trunk. There were a lot of things needed to be prepared before going into its body, but a lot of time could be saved with just this much. Camille smirked at that. What would you know even if you saw it? Those things were things which you couldn't even see during the tutorial stage. At that moment Hansu looked at Camille and asked. Did you prepare Apon's body fluid? We need that. That was needed to create the which 127 alchemists had researched and finally created with the information received from the Elvenheim he had met at the Abyss as the basis. You know about that. Is he really a beginner? Being strong was being strong, it was a completely different problem from Intel. I have a psychic power. Let's ignore trifling things. There's no time. Hansu answered simply and then started to go over the material thoroughly again. Camille looked at that Hansu. Does he have a trait like a library? Trait. It supplied information about the things one didn't know, and once the level increases it will give basic information regarding what to do. I thought he would have a battle-related trait. But for it to be the library. She had thought that it was a battle-related trait because he was such a strong guy, but the library was a bit out of expectation. Perhaps he has 2 traits. That might be possible since he hides so many things. While Camille was thinking of this and that while looking at Hansu, who had finished checking Camille's preparations, laid down a decision. We should spread out and search in order to save time. Camille had prepared quite well, but this was not enough. The first thing we need to make is a liquid which the alchemists had researched in order to give a fatal wound after getting inside the calamity fish. Other things might not be needed, but this was a necessity. Let's separate and move. Since there are a lot of things we need to get. Hansu spoke out the things needed to Camille. Materials which Hansu didn't know where they were, but Camille Rowe, who had roamed around the routes for 3 years, would definitely know. Camille would definitely get them in time. For the things which would be hard with Camille's level to get, he had to go. While Hansu was making plans for the future, Camille nodded after checking the list that Hansu had told her. It's clear this is a guy that has got something. *PR, he's not just saying nonsense. The 17 things he had told her were things she didn't prepare because she wasn't sure, but were things that she had thought that might work at one point. I'll trust him once. Camille, who had finished her thoughts, quickly separated from Hansu and started to head towards a different direction from him. Though it's a bit tight. I can get them all if there are no problems along the way. The only problem was the distance she had to travel and the many types of materials she had to collect. She knew the location of all 17 materials, and it wasn't hard for a third year as herself because most of them were from beasts at the end route. While Camille was jumping with light movements, a loud voice was heard from some place. Camille. Your body is still amazing. It'll really burst at that rate. There's really a huge difference between Westerners and Easterners. She then turned her head towards the direction of the voice. Kong Jaisu. You bastard. Whoa. Don't glare at me like that. We have a rather unique relationship between us. We've gone in and come out from within the calamity fish together. That I shouldn't have taken in a bastard like you on the second attempt. For someone who had barely held on to his life and come out from within the calamity fish to become a quadratus. Camille grinded her teeth. I'm still using the relic I got from within the stomach very well. Kohu. I thank you. Since it's all thanks to you. I've reached quite a high place thanks to that. Jaisu then proceeded to swing around the sword on his hand. A weird skill was applied onto the sword where the air which the sword had passed through shook. Are you going to disturb me again? As Camille grinded her teeth, Jaisu laughed loudly. Wawahaha. What kind of misunderstanding do you have? If we really disturbed you seriously, then you think you can even attempt at the calamity fish. If we did it properly, then you would have died already. We just kept you alive because of old friendship. What? As Camille was flustered, Jaisu giggled as he spoke. Disturbing you is more like. Well, we are followers, so we just touched you a few times because we couldn't leave somebody who tried to kill our god alone. But shouldn't it be time for you to accept it? That is basically an agent of God. You've seen it too. The insides of the calamity fish. Others don't know, but you and I know about it. I don't understand why somebody who had seen something like that wouldn't come into our quadratus. So are you here to ask me to join your quadratus again? Jaisu shook his head at those words. Nope. We aren't really interested anymore. What? Isn't it a bit shameless to ask for attention after 13 failures? It's not even fun anymore. I'm here because I have some business with that newcomer. Was he called Kong Hansu? As Camille's expressions froze, Jaisu shook his hands as he spoke. Whoa. Don't glare at me like that. It's not a bad proposition on his terms either. You see, a scout has come in from above. Camille looked at Jaisu with a slight frown at those words. Proofreaders note this is regular chapter 2/3. Regular chapters are on Wednesday, Friday and Sunday. Tomorrow is probably going to be Ekdud's rest day of the week. To clarify about the skill reinforcement. There are various different reinforcement skills. Each reinforces in its own way, and it's more or less efficient. Each also amplifies the user's stats with its own rate. And finally, each has a special skill that can be triggered. Chapter 58. Calamity Fish Hunting. 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Camille kept on looking at Jisoo with a cold expression. Search him by yourself. You probably came with your underlings anyway. And what are you going to do with your trait if not for this? Jisoo shrugged his shoulders at those words. Well. It's normal for her to not tell me. She was probably suspicious of what he was going to do. And how delightful was Hansu for Camille. She had finally met someone who was going to be with her after so long. She was pretending to be astute on the outside, but she was probably rather excited on the inside. Since Camille's actions which he had seen for the past 3 years were pitiful and lonely. TSK. That's a shame. If she told me, then we can save some time finding him. Jisoo shook his head. He had come here with 2 objectives. One was the tourism business. The other was scouting. He had been preparing the tourism business because the reaction was better than he expected. He could find him quickly if he searched, but everyone whom he had brought were preparing the tourism business, so an empty gap would be created if he took someone out. Scouting was something he was preparing here and there while doing his tourism business. Why would he waste manpower in that? There's no other way. I guess I'll run around a bit. His speciality allowed one to find the traces linking one person to another. He had been able to find Camille because of this and will be able to find Hansu as well. It will take some time, but it won't be hard. Well then. I shall take a stroll around a bit then. I'll see you later. I hope you succeed this time. Jisoo, who had wished her luck when he basically knew that she would fail, disappeared. Camille then looked towards the direction Hansu had disappeared to and pondered. Should I tell this to Hansu? Jisoo was a 3rd year just like her but stronger than her. Since he had focused on getting strong unlike her and even had artifacts. And the number of underlings wouldn't be small either. But Camille just shook her head. Damned bastard. You should at least tell me your destination. She didn't have any methods of finding him, and if he couldn't even handle such a thing, he didn't have the qualifications to go in the Calamity Fish. And it would be very tight for her to gather every material that he had asked her to within the time limit. Which meant that she didn't even have time to deal with such things. The moment she bickers with Quadratus, she would not be able to gather the materials. And he had told her. I believe in you. Camille then quickly moved in order to gather the closest material to her, Apon's body fluid. Hansu calculated the things he needed to gather and then nodded his head. The first thing I need to get is the which is the core ingredient of the hardening liquid. The hardening liquid required 28 materials to be mixed with the exact ratio. 9 of the 28 had been already gathered by Camille, and he had asked Camille to gather another 17 of them. But he had to gather the remaining 2. And the other 26 ingredients acted like catalysts, so a large amount wasn't needed, but these 2 were ingredients that will act as the base. A very large amount was needed even if they were going to pour it down a fatal location within the Calamity Fish, since it was that big. Hansu quickly rushed off into the distance. Kukulja's heart. A material which could be gathered in around the middle area of the end root. The alchemists took into account of the fact that they won't have much time and had created hardening liquid with things one could acquire near the edge of the end root, where the Calamity Fish would appear, but for him to get something like these. The difficulty of this place was very high for it being within the end root. After a long run, a giant lake came into view. A humongous lake that could separate 2 end roots. Surprisingly, this giant lake was something that the Kukulja had dug out. A lake which the Kukulja, which live in the toxic waters, had dug out from the bottom in order to mate in a place which was originally land. Hansu thought of the conversation he had with Keldian. A toxin which didn't work against humans but petrified a part of the Calamity Fish. And because of this, the Kukulja's heart, which has a large amount of this toxin, was needed in the hardening liquid. It would be safer to make them higher up the route if they were so scared of the calamity fish, so why would they make it around the end route area where it would be dangerous? Hansu finished his thoughts and then watched the swaying lake. A giant weird-looking fish which had the head of a bull and a human's arms and legs. It was so big that each of them exceeded 2 m in length. But the surprising fact was that the thing he was looking at was an infant. These guys grew up to 5 m long in adulthood. I'll get them one at a time. Hansu, who had seen thousands of them squirming around, poured the demonic dragon reinforcement onto a decent scythe he had found on the way to here and then slowly walked into the toxic lake. Splash! As soon as Hansu came in, all of the kukuljas within the lake raised their bull ears. And then started to madly rush towards the origin of the noise and vibration. Though the food was still in a shallow place, there was no problem, since they could advance while eating through the root. Kakakakakak. Thousands of teeth-bearing fish gnawed onto the bottom of the lake as they charged at Hansu. Hansu reinforced the scythe he was holding with demonic dragon reinforcement and then slammed it down onto the center of the bull head. Kududuk. The kukulja's skull had made a cracking sound and had split in two, but Hansu made an unsatisfied expression. TSK. As I expected, it can't handle the reinforcement well. If the artifact was bad, then it wouldn't be able to withstand the power of the reinforcement and would lose its durability fast. Though it was a decent weapon which he had gained by hunting down some beasts on the way here, it still wasn't good enough. Since the end route was a neighborhood designed for beginners and did not have anything hidden. At least I should use it while I can. Hansu pulled onto the scythe and threw its body onto the land as whole. If he left it in the lake like this, then everything including the heart will be chewed up by the other fish. Creating the extract from the heart was a job after the hunt. Quadaduk. Paduduk. And soon the thousands of fish bearing their teeth got stimulated by the blood as they madly charged at Hansu. Kududuk. Hansu applied his demonic dragon reinforcement onto the scythe and then crazily swung it here and there and pulled numerous fish out. Chuchichuk. The thousands of fish charged up with incredible speed across the water and then used that momentum to crash into Hansu and bite him with their teeth. The corpses of kukuljas were stacking outside the lake, but Hansu's body was equally gaining injuries. And at the same time the scythe cracked as it couldn't handle the power of the reinforcement anymore. Chuchichuk. Hung. A very large noise coming towards Hansu was heard as he was preventing the scythe from getting destroyed by adjusting the strength of the demonic dragon reinforcement. Shguguguguk. An attack which cut apart all the trees near the lake as it flew. Skill. Hansu made a cold expression as he raised his scythe to block the incoming attack. Chwuk. The scythe, which was filled up with the demonic dragon reinforcement, blocked the flying attack but was crushed apart as the result. Hansu blocked off the single attack, jumped out of the lake and then looked towards the direction where the attack had come from. And a guy was looking at him while smiling in that place. Whoa! You blocked that. The man, who had sheathed his pulsating sword back into his waist, smiled at Hansu as he spoke. Hello. I'm called Kong Jaisu. Calm down, I'm not here to fight. You aren't here to fight, huh? Jaisu smiled and continued to speak after seeing Hansu looked at the destroyed scythe and mumbled. That was just a test. If you couldn't even block that well, you'd be useless. Well, you pass first of all. Here's a business card. Jaisu then threw a whitish object at Hansu. Having something like this makes me feel like I'm in the real world. It's actually made by drying the Padro larva. Though it's a single use, it increases the regeneration speed on the area which you stick it onto, so think of me when you use it. Hansu shook his head while looking at the talkative man who had sent the attack with an intention to kill and then asked. Why have you come? He had consumed a large amount of his stamina from the fight with the kukulja. There was a need to go along with him for a while and regenerate his health. Jaisu spoke out. Simple. You've seen a lot of scouting before on T.V, right? Like headhunters. Well, long story short, I work at Quadratus. A group which is similar to a religion, yeah. That's a really untrustworthy line. Let's skip over the small details. Anyways, it's not easy following a god. You need a lot of money in Korea too, right? It's the same here. And we have a lot of different businesses in order to fill that up. And one of them is recruiting talented people and connecting them to clans above who don't have spare manpower for places like these. And we receive a reward for that. And starting from here, we do have currency, you know. Jaiso then rubbed his thumb and index finger. When Hansu didn't reply, Jaiso shrugged his shoulders as he continued to talk. It's better to not decline. The person who set you in their eyes this time is a bit dangerous. Following him is a win. Win for you and me. Jaiso then started to get cold sweat. The problem wasn't the guy in front of him. It was because this job was something that he had received from a person from one of the 6 pillars who had come to participate in their sightseeing which they were preparing. Goddamn gangsters. 6 pillars. 6 super-sized clans who were fighting in the trunk of the world tree, unlike them who were just playing around the roots. And one of them, Kals Morin, the captain of the shock troop left by the previous adventurer Keldian Magus, had told him that if we aren't careful then we might die. But unlike what Jaiso wanted, Hansu just shook his head. I'll decline. And at the same time Hansu made a cold expression. TSK. So it turns out like this in the end. His objective was the Calamity Fish. A collision with the Quadratus was inevitable for him since the path of attaining the hardening liquid intersected with them who were preparing the sightseeing business, even though he wanted to dodge as many useless collisions possible. Since it turned out like this already. End it quickly. He had already calculated such things as this. As Hansu prepared to fight, Jaiso's expression froze. You fucking bastard. Being arrogant because you beat Camille. Camille was a monster-like existence to the newcomers but was quite a weakling to those who roam around the trunk and the roots. TKS. This is my fault, huh? That guy was overestimating his worth since he had offered us scouting towards a new chick. He wanted to talk about it, but seeing that it didn't work he gathered all the energy within his body and then poured it into his relic. Look at that retard. Over there. To charge at a newcomer who bickers with him. Kals Morin mumbled while looking at Kong Jaisu above the cruise ship which the Quadratus guys had prepared for sightseeing with the MVP sponsors. Note: you rested long enough, whip. Get back to work, whip. Wah ha ha, whip 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 hee hee. Just kidding. Thank you. For all your hard work. Slightly smiling face. Proofreaders note: pillar. Starting route. Central route. End route was changed to trunk. Base route. Middle route. End route. Thank you, Psycho, for noticing. More seriously. Ekdud forgot demonic before dragon reinforcement. Kabato got so mad that his productivity increased, and tomorrow there might be 2 chapters instead of 1. Chapter 59. Calamity Fish Hunting. 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I should change the name to package delivery instead of scouting. Jaiso mumbled as he covered his entire body with various skills. Though something like this had happened before, it had never become a problem. Since there was a very clear method. If he beats him up a little and take him, Kals Morin will solve it all. TSK. You should have listened when we were talking about it. Jaiso clicked his tongue and started to pour in his energy into the relic he was holding. Camille and him were both 3rd years but were at different levels. They were at similar levels when they came out from within the stomach of the Calamity Fish, but while Camille was focusing on useless things such as hunting down the Calamity Fish, he had focused on getting stronger. And the thing he had faith in. The skill that was on this thing he had picked up within the stomach of the Calamity Fish, was a step above artifacts you could find in the base route or the trunk in terms of strength. A strong undulation came out from Jisu's sword as it rushed towards Hansu. Cal's Morin frowned as thought of the last scene he had seen. That retard, is it that hard to bring a newcomer over here? Allowed one to see the viewpoint of the pre-selected person for 3 seconds when their emotions change rapidly. Though there were a lot of prerequisites, it was still a very useful skill since it allowed one to watch over somebody from a long distance. And the last scene he had caught could only be seen in a way where they were about to fight. TKS. This is quite troublesome. Actually, it wasn't bad to bring them after beating them up. There wouldn't be a procedure of struggling and bad feelings will just disappear once they receive the symbol of the clan. But the reason why they were scouting was because they didn't have the leisure to give the newcomer the symbol. They only give the symbol to those who are really strong and control the others with influence or money. Though they were scouting him because he looked quite strong, there wasn't a chance for newcomers, who were quite lacking, to receive symbols. At the end, it means that the clan has to go through another cumbersome procedure to use some dude that has hard feelings towards them. But the most annoying thing was that there was a chance that the Jisu guy could get destroyed while fighting with the newcomer. What is this when I came here for a vacation? He wanted to leave that useless guy to die, but he was one of the supervisors of the sightseeing this time around. He had come all the way here because he had heard at the sightseeing that the Quadratus guys operated was very good, but if that guy were to die, then wouldn't he not be able to see all those good sights? Let's see. He was too lazy to act himself. If he told the nearby Quadratus people, then they will act by themselves. Cal's Morin started to collect mana in his seat. Kaiawak. A few men were being chased by hundreds of dinosaur-shaped beasts. The man, who had been standing in the very front out of the ones being chased, turned around as he shouted loudly. We're using a very useful skill which you could get around the middle route. It was different according to one's mastery, but it allowed Sombiety to hide their presence. Of course, invisibility was part of this. And soon the 5 people running disappeared as if they were erased. Kayak. The beasts who were chasing screamed out in rage as the ones they were chasing disappeared. But they remained and searched around the area as if they had no intentions of going back. And the man sighed in relief as he saw this scene. This is really dangerous. It's almost deadly. Raptor-shaped beasts who lived in herds on the middle route. It greatly cared for its young to the point where the whole herd will chase them down to the ends of hell to avenge the dead. Even if the one who had killed them crossed over the middle route area and into the base route. After a few days of repetitive work, the path leading from the end route to the middle route was filled with thousands of Gerdas. It was quite a grand sight, but the one who had completed this, Cheng, just shook his head as if he was tired. Kong Jisu, what is so hard for you bastard to bring a newcomer? He accepted the fact that that guy's job was important. The sightseeing that they were preparing was important as well, but they could not ignore Cal's Morin's request. But shouldn't that guy have come after he had completed it? There were a lot of things that still needed to be completed in order to prepare a proper tour. They had to shove some more Gerdas onto the paths, prepare the cruise ship a bit more, and buy the silence of the helper clan members too. We're busy enough already. He didn't like the way Jisu carried himself, but he had to acknowledge Jisu's ability. No, to be precise, it was more his sword than his ability. The people in charge of the sightseeing who had come here were 11 in total, including himself. Though it was quite a number, every missing person felt like a huge gap due to the large amount of work they each had to do. At that moment a small bird flew in. A single blue bird which flew into where they were hiding precisely. Though it had come with the full knowledge of where they were hiding, they were still not surprised. Cal's Morin. It was weirder for that guy to not know where they were at his level. Anyways, to used the to that degree. Was a skill which created a small bird using mana and a message. It wasn't hard to acquire and learn, but using it well was extremely hard. He knew it as well, but if his comrades didn't help it with the same skill, it was hard to relay it properly. To make it arrive properly in a situation where the receiver wasn't helping needed extreme control of mana, but as he saw the bird which flew perfectly to their location, as if he was proving his position of the captain of the shock troop, he could only marvel. Soon the blue bird, which had arrived in front of Cheng, blew up with a poof and relayed a message to them. And he slightly frowned as he read the message inside it. Though it's only a maybe. Cheng, who had thrown it towards the other supervisors who were busy breaking down ships, shouted loudly. Stop temporarily. We pause our work here and move out. Kukulja Lake was right next to the path they were blocking. It wouldn't take long for them to run over there. Cheng, who had shouted loudly, took along the Quadratus followers under him as he started to run quickly. Boom! The absorbed mana as if it was about to explode. The runes on the sword, which was devouring the mana, shone radiantly until it couldn't handle mana any more than it poured out a skill as if it was exploding. A skill which cut everything in the way of the blade into two with the mana undulations on the sword. The amazing part about this skill was that it could cover both short and long distances. It could spread far or wide depending on the user's thoughts and even compress down to the size of a single sword and cut a person in half. And the way Jaisu was using the blade currently was the latter. Unlike before where it was spreading out like a wave, the stuck onto Jaisu's sword as it charged forward to cut apart the opponent in half. An entirely different level from a mana reinforcement which was operated by a normal reinforcement skill. The mana reinforcement of a reinforcement skill increased the durability and sharpness of a weapon greatly, but it was inferior to an offensive skill which was focused on destruction. And Hansu knew this as well. The parallel cut was a skill that was quite high up on the rankings out of the skills you could acquire in the red zone. If that skill and the sharpness of the relic combines and he tried to block it just with the demonic dragon reinforcement, then he will receive large injuries. Jaisu's furious movements started to get stacked inside Hansu's head. And soon a virtual Jaisu had appeared in Hansu's head and it showed his next moves. Hansu followed that as he moved his body slightly off from Jaisu's attack parameter. At that moment Jaisu's eyes shone. He's caught, parallel cut. The control of the area of effect was according to how the user wanted it. The extremely compressed skill exploded out the moment Hansu dodged. Out the people he had fought after gaining the sword, there were people stronger than him. But those guys had also lost their necks after getting swept up by the exploding skill the moment they dropped their guard thinking they had dodged it. Though you dodge quite well, you won't be different from the others. While Jaisu was making a content expression while looking at the skill that was sweeping up the surroundings like a wave, something unexpected happened. Boom! The ring on Hansu's hand absorbed mana aggressively and then struck back at his skill. Pak hang. The moment Hansu's right hand and his skill collided, a sound of something breaking was heard as the parallel cut, which was aggressively sweeping up the surroundings, got crushed apart. Jaisu questioned his eyes when he saw this. Fuck. What is that? He had thought that it was something like a dispel, but it wasn't easy for a dispel to break apart his skill which had a high mana density. No, there was no previous intel about Hansu holding on to something like this previously. Camille Rowe. This bitch. Was she not even able to pull out all of this newcomer's power? He had collected some intel regarding this guy before coming here. Since there were people who had come with him on the same boat. And within that intel there was information regarding his fight with Camille Rowe, but there was nothing regarding that ring. But Jaisu realized that it wasn't time for him to think about such things for a prolonged time. Goddammit. Hansu utilized the moment the skill was broken and was charging at him with a fearsome speed. Jaisu hurriedly tried to retrieve his sword, but it was too late. Damn. There's not enough time to use parallel cut again. Parallel cut had high mana density and a lot of strength, but it took a bit of time to charge up. Jaisu hurriedly pulled up the power of his to its limit and used the special skill of the bronze reinforcement. And Jaisu's body instantly got dyed with a bluish tint. The skin turns like bronze as physical and magical resistances increase by a large amount, as well as raising the regeneration speed of health by a large amount. He didn't use it usually because it was a bit burdensome to use it with due to its high mana usage, but he didn't have any confidence after seeing the charging Hansu's hand covered in dark gold lights. Even if it was just his bare hands, his intestines will be pulverized if he was hit by it. At that time the ring on Hansu's hand devoured mana again and then charged towards Jaisu. God damn it. Really? But Hansu disappointed Jaisu's expectations. Chwuk, the moment the ring touched Jaisu's skin, his skin, which was tinted blue, turned back to its original form. And 3 of his defensive skills that covered his body got crushed apart like glass along with that. Hansu's punch then landed onto Jaisu's stomach. Tung. Kuhuk. Jaisu flew backwards as he felt his intestines being twisted and turned. What is this nonsense? He can crush apart special skills along with normal skills. And his reinforcement was a problem as well. Though he had resistance and defensive artifacts, but the mana reinforcement of that damnable reinforcement skill was too powerful for them to be alright. Damn it. Where did he get something like that? Reinforcement skills held quite a high value for being very common. But if you were to think from a different angle, the mana reinforcement from the reinforcement skill was inferior to the strength of an attacking skill, and the resistances were inferior to defensive skills. But that thing was beyond that level. Jaisu, who had mindlessly stood back upright while flying, was astonished at the sight of Hansu, who had caught up to him and was about to strike him again. If this goes on, then he will be beat up to death. Damn it. If I knew it'd be like this, then I would have prepared something like the feather. But where would he get something that expensive? Jaisu distanced himself from Hansu with as he hurriedly shouted. Wait. I'm just doing his under a request. I'm a victim too. Damn it. Do you think a medium-sized clan like us can decline an order from above? Though he had shouted it out in panic, it was true to some degree. What kind of strength would they have for them to decline the request of a captain of a shock troop of a huge clan? And you will really die if you don't follow us. These words had 2 different meanings. He might die under the hands of Cal's Moran, but he will also die if he remains on the end route. Hansu, who had been charging towards Jaisu, made a cold expression. He knew. Since he had heard about the sightseeing business that these guys had started around now. Crazy bastards. A business created for those above who had increased their strength but weren't able to fulfill their twisted desire. Hansu looked at Jaisu with a cold expression as he thought of the tourists who came to see the event, of thousands of newcomers, who would be trapped here by the Quadratus, getting eaten by the calamity fish. Proofreaders note this is a sponsored chapter, and an appetizer for the regular chapter coming in a few hours. Chapter 60. Calamity Fish Hunting, 5, you are listening at novelfull.audio. You bitch. I already told you everything I know. Jaisu, who had already become a mess, looked at Hansu, who was trying to wield the that was stolen from him. For him to try killing him after he had puked out everything he knew. Jaisu, after getting pushed back as far as he could get, shouted loudly as he looked at Hansu. Yeah. You bastard. Do you know who will come once I die? The Cal's Moran I spoke of earlier will come. Jaisu then pointed towards his forehead. A small pink eye symbol. It was the symbol of. You don't seem to know, but he's watching everything through this. If you kill me, then he won't stay still. Hansu snorted inwardly. When the thousandly eye of the man caught within jealousy was activated once, it could only see about 3 seconds. And light pink meant that it had a low mastery level. There was no way to watch over everything with that. But Hansu made a surprised expression. What? God damn it. Such a guy will chase me down. Jaisu looked at him and then laughed. Kuhuhu. Yeah, you bastard. Hurry and run away. Since he had done this much, he will not be able to kill him. There was a large difference between beating him up without knowing and killing him even after telling him that there was somebody watching behind him. Since that would mean that he would be completely ignoring Cal's Morin. And Cal's Morin's personality was definitely not something that would let something like that pass by. Puke. Jaiso tumbled around from the shock of the back of his head getting smashed. Hansu had done this to make him pass out. As I expected. Jaiso laughed inwardly even while losing consciousness. Since the fact that he had made him pass out meant that he feared Cal's Morin to a degree. That guy would probably run away as quickly as possible now. Within the blurring sight, Hansu was quickly moving towards the jungle. Run away. I'll definitely kill you. Jaiso's thoughts ended there as he passed out. But unlike Jaiso's thoughts, Hansu stopped his movements and then quickly came back. Acting is tiring too. Hansu looked at the passed-out Jaiso on the ground and then stared up into the sky. Blue carrier pigeons, which were flying back and forth since a while ago. Soon this guy's comrades will come. According to the information Hansu had heard from him, the 11 supervisors, including himself, and their subordinates summed up to about 100 people. It was not a low amount of people at all. And another troublesome aspect. Cal's Morin. Hansu muttered quietly. Actually Hansu didn't know who this Cal's Morin was. Since he couldn't remember him, it seemed like this guy had died before getting to the indigo or purple zone. One who could only snort around the red zone couldn't stay within Hansu's memories. There's so many things to remember already. There was only one important fact. That he was the captain of the shock troop of Lighthouse. That alone told him that he was a formidable fellow. Since that spot was not something earned through poker. He couldn't ignore the captain of the shock troop of Lighthouse. Which meant that it was impossible to gather the materials while receiving the disruptions of those guys. Hansu looked at the passed-out guy on the ground for a while and then stood up. I should prepare a bit. The main point of the sightseeing business was quite simple. Gather up the beasts, block up the paths leading out and sink all the ships. If you do just these two things, then the newcomers would not be able to leave at all. They isolate the end route like this and then go out onto the sea on the cruise ship and watch it devour the route. Of course the main show is watching the newcomers struggling above the route. There was no reason for backlash since the helper clansmen would have pulled out the people needed by the VIPs or VIPs. First I must check which beasts have been gathered up. Hansu lifted up the passed-out guy and then hid him in the corner of the jungle. Since he might be found before he came back. He then went into the forest as he ruthlessly used parallel cut to chop apart the trees and advanced through the jungle. The objective of Quadratus is blocking the newcomers from leaving the route which the calamity fish will eat up. They would have definitely gathered tons of beasts at each side of the Kukulja Lake, which acted as the boundary line. Since they won't have to guard a large perimeter if they blocked along the Kukulja Lake. Kayak. Roars could be heard after a short trip through the jungle. Gerdas who were filled up with rage because they had lost their child couldn't get to stomp over the culprit. It was Gerdas He hadn't known which of the 13 beasts with herd-like natures they were, but after checking them it was the Gerdas. Good. Hansu, who had personally confirmed the Gerdas being near, quickly headed towards a different direction. And then quickly started to harvest something in the forest. Darren Vine's root. Gathering some amars. It would have been hard if he was bare-bodied, but the was of great help. Dumbass. That's not how you use this. That guy had been using this by pouring mana into this and either exploding or compressing it to strengthen the sword, but the true usage of the was not that. Stretch. As Hansu poured in mana, a free-formed blade grew out. This was the true usage. Something that the guy, who only knew how to blow it up or compress it, couldn't use. A free-form blade that required the mana control to be extremely fine to the point where one can do both things simultaneously. Hansu swung that blade in all directions as he cut off the beasts' necks and collected the needed ingredients. The free-form sword of which the length and shape kept changing constantly aimed for the unguarded spots of the beasts. Let's see. I should need about 20 of them. Hansu, who had squeezed out the incense pouch of 20 amars along with a few other ingredients, approached the Gurdas who were aggressively roaming around. The Gurdas charged at him but it was fruitless. Chwack. Hansu was cautious to not get any of the blood on his body as he swung the free-form sword around. The stretched-out blade cut of the neck of the Gurda. Done. Though it would be better if he had the blood of the baby, it would take too much time for him to find the hidden baby. Since the Quadratus guys will arrive soon. Hansu poured the blood on his free-form sword onto the prepared ingredients and then quickly put into the by his waist. It's troublesome if the scent gets spread. Hansu quickly moved his body towards the passed-out Jaisu after he had completed his work. He was still passed out. And above that Jaisu, a few blue carrier pigeons were flying around. They will arrive if they receive the help from the receiver, but since they weren't receiving the help they didn't arrive. But soon his comrades will arrive. Hansu quickly approached the mess of a guy. A guy who had become bloodied from head to toe from the battle with him. But the injuries were healing at a rate that could be seen with the naked eye. If some more time passes and then he uses the regeneration rune, he'll probably be healed to the point he'll be able to move again. Hansu approached the passed-out Jaisu. And then he quickly pulled out the mixture he had made, put it into the split wound on his thigh and then quickly shut the wound. It will take some time for the gap completely heal. And he didn't have the time wait for that. Let's see. Hansu fumbled around his pockets as he pulled something out. I'll return your business card. As Hansu stuck the business card which was made of the Padro larva's hide onto his thigh, the business card melted down as the wound on the thigh closed up. Hansu, who had made a satisfactory expression at the completely healed wound, nodded and disappeared into the jungle after clearing up his tracks. Soon slashing sounds were heard as Cheng, one of the commanders, and his subordinates appeared. Cheng made a dumbfounded expression as he looked at Jaisu laid out on the floor. This retard. He really lost. Cheng looked at Jaisu as he was seriously pathetic but then just shook his head. He wants to throw Jaisu into the Kukulja lake after taking into account the fact that Jaisu had worked so hard was still laid out like this, but this guy was a bit special even out of the commanders. Since he was a guy who had been inside the calamity fish. Let's take this guy and go back. Damn it. He didn't want to report this situation to Cal's Morin. He had to wake this guy up no matter what and make him report it himself. All the aid was on the cruise ship anyway. Cheng took Jaisu and then quickly moved towards the cruise ship. When does it start? Cal's Morin looked towards the distant sea with a content expression. The calamity fish was still quite a distance away, but if you take into account his great eyesight and the size of that thing, it wasn't hard to spot it. The Quadratus guys are quite good. Getting a 2,000-man boat was hard enough, but these guys somehow managed to station it right next to the route. Anyways. That's why there are so many tourists. If they had thought that it was dangerous from the start, then the tourists wouldn't even have gathered. And a 2,000-man boat was at the level where it could withstand the waves created by the calamity fish. But unlike Cal's Morin, the newcomer standing next to him, Alan, was making a rather bitter expression. Cal's Morin chuckled. Look at this kid. He was a guy that he held dearly. And that was why he had brought him along after paying the tourism fee. Cal's Morin knew the reason why he was making such an expression. It hasn't been long since you came into our clan, right? Alan pondered for a moment and then answered. It has been about 27 days. And when did you come to the other world? Alan shrugged his shoulders. 1 year. Since I came through the last year's tutorial. Cal's Morin smiled contently at those words. Only strong people could come into Lighthouse, one of the 6 pillars. But this guy had come into Lighthouse in 1 year and into the most dangerous shock troopers. If you take into account the fact that most people in Lighthouse were 3rd and 4th years, then this guy's talent was amazing. And that was one of the reasons why he held him so dearly. It's probably because he's still a 1st year. Such a thing like this would probably make him feel a little dirty. To shove down huge groups of people into the stomach of the calamity fish and watching it. Cals Morin spoke towards Aelin. You probably know by now. What do you think of every day while you live? Aelin shrugged his shoulders as he answered. Getting stronger. Cals Morin chuckled. Right. Surviving day by day isn't your goal anymore, right? Since you aren't at that level anymore. I was like you around that level too. But you start to think differently right before you go up. There's nothing he should be scared of right now. Since they, who ruled over the red zone, were really strong. They had long been qualified to go up to the orange zone. But there was only one reason why they had remained here. Of course they won't start off from the rock bottom. Since there was still a gap from those who barely qualified to go up to the orange zone and them. And they would probably be able to rise above others faster than them. But that wasn't the important part. There won't be people who would tremble at the sight of them, and there might be people who he would have to run away from. He had to struggle to get stronger again and go back into dangerous places. Do you know what comes up in your head at this point? What comes up in your head? You start to get an idea that you have to rule as much as you get here and then go up. It was hard to remain in one place forever without going up due to the world tree structure. And when you become one of the clansmen of the 6 pillars, and the top within that clan, you start to get thoughts such as this. But this wasn't easy either. There was no way to fulfill the stomach. Since the only thing to eat here were nutritional fluids. There wasn't much need for sleep, and one would get fed up with lust after a day or two. He needed something more fun and intense. Something to fulfill this desire of the ones who will go up soon and become tired again. And the Quadratus sightseeing was something created for people like this. I look forward to it. It was quite a good sight to see dying people struggle. That alone wouldn't be enough, but there were thousands of people, and such a thing would become very grand once the calamity fish takes part in it. According to the ones who had seen it before, this was really a good sight. Shouldn't he have a look at such a wondrous sight before going up? At that moment he felt a presence approach him. Then Cals Morin clicked his tongue after seeing what had come. Did you seriously lose? He had told the other Quadratus guys just in case, but for him to really lose. While Jaisu was making an embarrassed face, Cals Morin wrinkled his nose at the very faint scent. A scent which normal humans could not smell, and only he, who had learned, could detect. And then he looked towards the origin of the scent. Jaisu's thigh. Cals Morin frowned his brows as he looked at Jaisu with an incredibly fearsome expression. You retard. Pardon. Jaisu was shocked at the sudden bloodthirst rushing towards him and replied unconsciously. Kayak. A very faint scent breezed past the noses of the Gurdas. A scent which was created when the extremely agitated Gurdas' pheromones and blood were mixed. It was clear what his scent meant. That the killer of one of their kind had been covered with their blood. The strong scent, which seemed like it was asking for revenge, was carried by the winds. And it was amplified thousands of times. Kayak. Thousands of Gurdas which were roaming near the Kukulja lake started to madly dash towards the origin of the scent. And Hansu laughed as he saw this sight. He couldn't gain a large amount of time, but this was enough for now. I should finish fast and go make some of that nutritional fluid. I wonder if that Jaisu guy is alright. He didn't know who Cals Morin was, but according to what he heard about his personality, it would be hard for him to ignore such a blunder like this. Hansu rushed out to complete the extract within the time that Jaisu had kindly bestowed him. Proofreaders note this is regular chapter 3/3 and the 8th chapter of the week.